I don't know. I'm not a wizard. We've been talking a lot about wizards on this episode for some reason. I did not go to Hogwarts. I'm not a wizard. Nobody came. No big giant came to my house and said, "You're a wizard, Harry." They didn't say that to me. They said, "Get your butt to school. You're just a normal kid." That's what they said. So I don't know the coding and things that go into it. So I can't tell you how
somebody
feasible
shot your
this
owl
is.
right before it got to your house.
They shot the owl, so I never got the letter.
I just see this guy like, oh, look, that's good. That's a good meal. That's a good meal right there.
Yeah, owls
Like,
don't carry letters through Alabama. That's all I'm saying. Somebody shot that down and was like, "Nah, that don't look right." I just saved a national security issue, and then went back to drinking his Budweiser.
Welcome to the Threshing Floor Podcast, your premier destination for discussion and commentary on the Redemption trading card game and its community. Kick back and relax as we catch you up on the latest news, tournament results, and deck building strategies to take your game to the next level. Now, here are your hosts, John Hendricks and Ager the Wise.
What's up, guys? Here we are. We're back again. We've got Jake back with us after missing last episode. How does it feel to be Redemption famous? Right here off the top, we'll just go ahead and ask.
That was
Redemption
awesome.
famous.
I feel like I should put up that Chris Pratt gif of what?
Yeah. So if you don't know what we mean by Redemption famous, we'll get into that in a little bit when we talk about some spoilers. But your boy is in the game.
Let's go.
We'll explain that. But we missed you last episode, so you are back. How have things been?
Good, busy. The family's back. The baby is amazing. He's huge. He's
Huge.
99 percentile for his weight. He's like at church. They're asking for him to be on their college football teams, signing up already. They're like, it's awesome. He's amazing. I have my wife back. I have my baby back. I'm very blessed. Very busy. Very blessed.
Make sure you get a good NIL deal for him.
Yeah, definitely.
That's hilarious that you would use that as a way to bring it in.
Yeah, that's funny.
Well, we are here for episode number 96. Man, we are trucking right along towards episode 100. I've promised the last couple of times we've recorded that I'm going to get through some things and we're going to stop talking about, the Nationals experience and rules and things. And so this, I believe, it's not going to be a completely normal episode, I don't think, because we don't have all of the information to give you all of the segments that we did. Like, I didn't feel like we were quite back in the know a little bit, still getting our feet wet and things coming back into it. I didn't feel like I had enough data to throw out a top 10 list of players. So when I went and I looked at some Lucky Grand Prix finishes and stuff, and I just didn't feel like I had enough wherewithal of where everyone is to throw out anything that I thought would be a good representation of the top 10 players. And I didn't want to offend anyone or anything, or, just make a botcha list. So I know we always use a disclaimer that it's just what we think and whatnot.
But we don't even know what we think right now.
Yeah. I know there's some people that are looking forward to those rankings returning, and they will return. So I will tell you that the next time we record, I hope to have enough thoughts about where things stand to have that, but we don't have that. And also I didn't, go and pick out a deck or anything for us to look over exclusively for our deck spotlight or whatever, but hopefully those things will come. Actually, Jake, I haven't even talked to you. I don't know. Are we going to be throwing some card designs on this episode?
I don't know about this episode. I've had a few, but I don't think I've
got them in the chamber, so they're marinating.
They're still marinating in there.
Next episode,
exactly.
Okay. So a normal-ish episode. We're going to try to move forward and progress forward and be excited about things that are upcoming and coming up. It's a cool time in the game, as we get ready to transition into tournament season. That's always fun because people start to, you get those creative juices flowing for building decks, that maybe haven't been played a lot, or you're starting to strap up and make competitive tweaks and meta calls for decks that we have seen over the last few months since the last set came out, as we get ready to go into some tournaments. And I think that whole transition period is fun. You also have the fact that we're getting into the point to where our spoiler season is upon us. We love our
Ooh,
spoilers
boy.
here at the
Yeah.
podcast. We love them, especially when they feature the podcast.
Exactly. Let's go.
So I am excited about that. We've got some information about nationals that has come out. Maybe we'll see a little bit more consistent content for the game. Obviously, we've got some of our stalwarts of content creators being Baboonie Tim and, Redemption with Jaden. Those guys are always pushing it out. But I don't know about the video side of it, but since the public decks thing have gone live on Land of Redemption,
Wow.
there's been a lot of decks being shared by
really
one
good.
Mr. Hiatus,
Yeah.
Tyler himself. So at some point, he'll just start jumping in on those videos probably more frequently and whatnot.
We just need some AI bots to actually play the game for us so we can play against AI bots. It'd be fun.
Give us the data. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Speaking of, there has been a couple of references to kind of coming out with some kind of way to power weight the decks, kind of like what we did last year. So maybe that's your calling card. Maybe we've got to put in a call for you to organize something there. But before we go any further, there's two things I want to do. First thing I want to do is I want to make sure that we spotlight that this episode is brought to you by our sponsors over at Your Turn Games. Fantastic relationship we have with them because they have not cut us off, even though we've cut off the recording button a few times, but really excited about, that relationship and all the cool things that Andy has coming up and how vital that business is to the community and whatnot. But he's also going to be sponsoring the Ironman event at Nationals again. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But a lot of cool things, we highlighted the mystery packs before and whatnot. So if you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you go over and check that website out, yourturngames.biz, and give them some love for all the cool things that they do supporting the content creators in Redemption. Not just us, but, they sponsor the Redemption with Jaden, but also the Zoom Discord Invitational, I believe, somehow features some kind of prize support over their season-long tournament format. So a lot of different, they've got their hands in a lot of different pots as far as supporting the community and things. So go and check them out.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I wanted to say, and I told you this was going to be a normal-ish episode, but I do want to talk about one thing just quickly, because as I have talked on the last two episodes, which, speaking of, you weren't on the last episode, but I assume you listened to the conversation with, the curator of the Brown Tower.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of cool information there, getting to see his perspective from the side of where he has been an elder as well as, a competitive player. But one thing that kind of, I guess it dawned on me somewhere through listening back to that conversation with Justin is that while I have had almost a little bit of a therapeutic release talking about what has happened, what happened to me at Nationals and what I've been feeling since and going over that, I never intended to be disrespectful to anyone, even if I shared like a name of someone, it was never an intention to cast negative light on that person. So that was never my intention, but still, it dawned on me that talking about it and bringing it up, even though it is something that I think deserves to be brought up and should be brought up and discussed, and I feel like I have every right to discuss my experience, talking about it in the detail that I did for those two episodes, I started thinking about it from potentially Marcus's perspective. So I wanted to hear, since I use this forum as the way to communicate those concerns and things, I wanted to also acknowledge this side of it, offer an apology to Marcus for, a public apology here for the way that I acted. I think I've mentioned that a couple of times, but as I've talked about it and given life to that situation, imagine from Marcus's perspective, he could have made every call at Nationals correct except for the situation with me. And nobody's talking about I haven't been talking, I won't say no one, but we haven't necessarily been talking about the correct calls that were made. We've been harping on the negative part of the blowback of that. And I probably gave that more life because of my reaction to it and things and whatnot. So, and I was wrong in that. I will continue to own that. But I want to, here in a public forum space where I've been sharing about that, I want to acknowledge that the value that I find as a player from Marcus and the community finds. And I want to, I guess, maybe apologize for the fact that I've maybe made him relive the potentially one of the few mistakes that he made at Nationals, just giving life and talking about that, just retreading over the fact that it was a mistake. And I could see how potentially it could be coming down that I'm isolating one event, one bad call that he made, or what I feel is one bad call he made. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just acknowledging that I get it from that side. And if that has come across in any way disrespectful, I never intended for it to be that way. So I just want to say that here and share that with the community of listeners, since this is where I've been getting my therapy sessions talking about it. So
yeah,
I think that's all I'm going to say about the ruling stuff. And now we can get to our normal-ish episode.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
That's
Marcus, I apologize again for my actions in the moment and then potentially in the fallout and talking about it afterwards. So
good to strive for unity, good to strive for reconciliation. Those are always
Yeah.
good things to seek after.
Yeah. When we were getting ready to hit the record button to break down the fourth wall, like we like to do here, you mentioned the redemptionccg.app, which is what was called the tournament tracker.
This
But
thing,
man, we're going to
is amazing.
Actually, you know what? Wait a second, dude. I gotta get back right. Check this out. Watch this. 3, 2, 1.
Sit back and relax while we get you caught up on all the latest news and notes from around the game and the community.
Boom. So recent news and notes.
Yeah.
All right. So this would definitely fall in that category. I gotta get back good with the soundboard and throwing these clips in. Redemptionccg.app, which is what was the tournament tracker, but now it's more an all-encompassing thing, because now there are public decks that you can share and things like that. And there's a lot of decks that have been shared. I am happy to say that I have shared 2 decks. I don't know if anyone will find a lot of value in there, but I at least shared a couple of decks. Tyler, Mr. Hiatus, I mentioned, he's been pushing the decks out. So what are your initial thoughts when you see those changes and what that opens the door for Redemption?
Like, this website, this app, this is so clean, so crisp. It is exactly what you want in terms of like sharing deck lists from events or on articles or just on Discord. Like you get 2 preview cards, you get tags, you get all these things in here. This is really cool. Like, I don't even think I can overstate it. Like, this is really amazing in terms of making the game look better on to the outside world too. Like, you think about it, like every
Outside
big game,
world, inside world, every world.
Well, like, think about it, like anybody that like you're like, hey, like this is a game that people take seriously. There's competitive decks and stuff, and then you ship them like a list of a notepad list of a deck. Like, okay, if you go to Magic and you send them a link to a deck, they're gonna have a whole like a thing of like, oh, this is where the deck is. It's gonna have pictures. It's gonna have everything like set up nice, and it's gonna have a nice format. And this thing is completely professional in that sense. Like, this is the type of thing that you can say, hey, look, here's our top 8 list of all the top 8 decks of this tournament. Like, people actually put in a lot of effort in here. You can look up all the cards. I've seen cards that I didn't know about, like that I still haven't run into. I can go mouse over everything. Like, it is so crisp. It's so clean. It's so fresh. This thing is awesome. Booney Tim's doing an amazing job at all times. Like, this guy is on fire. So this is really cool. I love it. I think it's amazing. This is exactly the type of thing we need.
I think my favorite thing about it is that you can easily take your deck list, drop it in there, and make it public or whatever, so you can share that. And that's really cool, that aspect. I think it's really cool to use that as the way to log decks, and then drop a link to that in the deck list channel. And then instead of a grainy picture of Lackey, you get this. And you can make it lay out kind of like we do for Lackey cards.
Dude, there's this first animals deck.
Mouse over them, but you can click the card. Oh, I really need to add this card. I haven't seen this card before. I didn't realize it did that. I need a copy of this card, and then you can have it search out. Here it goes. You ready? Your Turn Games. And you can go to Your Turn Games and find out how much that card is right now. And with just a couple of clicks, you can put that in your cart and order it. And then if you're going to a tournament and you've loaded your deck on this to share it with people, and you decide, oh, I'm going to, Kentucky State tournament's coming up. I'm going to run this deck that I've shared. I can just go and generate the PDF directly from that.
Yeah.
So that I don't have to sit there and fill out a list of this is what is in my deck and all of that. That takes, can take a lot of time when you're doing deck lists and writing them out at a tournament. So I think it's fantastic. And I we've got some community mailbag questions queued up, and one of those is from Tim asking about, it's going to take me a little while not to call it the tournament tracker. So, because it was just on the tip of my tongue, the redemptionccg.app website. And he asked about features we might like to see. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. I don't want to harp on that here if we're going to talk about it later, but I am very excited for what it does for the game, as far as making deck list accessible. And then not only that, Land of Redemption is the hub for redemption, right? I know that there's the Cactus official website. We've got, some people still post things within the Discord that maybe doesn't make its way on the Land of Redemption. And, there's the archives of the forums and things like that. But if you want to know what's happening in Redemption right now, there's a good chance it's ported over into the central hub of information that is Land of Redemption. And putting deck lists front and center like this, I think, is going to be a fantastic thing long term. Once we get it built up, you'll be able to go back and you'll be able to review and see, decks. Think about being able to go there and scroll back 3 years and see kind of how the metagame changed. Obviously, that'll be 3 years into the future because it just started, but I think that's the thing that we have the capability of now, having kind of that classic time capsule catalog almost, where it's not scrolling back and trying to find deck lists that have been shared in Discord, because Discord is great for having conversations and things.
It is.
And I know that we have the rule of trying to get everybody to talk about certain decks in threads so that you can just scroll different decks through that channel, but still, it's not as convenient as it is using this tool with Land of Redemption.
Agreed. This thing is really cool.
Yeah. And speaking of Baboony Tim, he has a couple of videos. I don't know how far he's going to go with this, but I really like the concept of these videos, the Let's Build series. And he's talking about Paragon, which is, someone said it's Redemption's commander.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Magic as far as like commander and things. I understand that there's some like lead character or whatever, and you build your deck around that central focus character. I understand the abstract concepts, but I've never personally played Magic. So everything that I know is kind of inferred information. Like I've just picked it up over time from references and things. But I am loving seeing him take and walk you through. And he's also using this tool and showing you how you can build decks directly in this ccg.app website. So that's really cool. And speaking of Paragon, I guess I didn't say that at the lead of this episode, but hopefully we're able to put it all together. I'm recording the main part of the episode here with you tonight. Then tomorrow night, have plans to actually record with Kurt Hake, breaking down the fourth wall here, and then we're going to splice them together and call it an episode. And we're going to talk all about the Paragon format because it's going to be featured at Nationals. There's a lot of excitement around the potential of it. I don't know necessarily if there's a lot of excitement around it itself yet, but it's the potential of what, it could lead to a more casual format multiplayer, bring things back into the game that we don't currently have. So I'm excited about having that conversation.
Do we have any good examples of a full Paragon game? Like I looked at Baboony's deck building things for it, but I haven't seen any actual gameplay footage from it.
I have not seen any either, and that's one of the things that
I think that would be a biggest thing to get the thing boosted. Like I'm gonna go back through and like I'm still learning about it, but I've seen a deck building. I think the deck building is really cool, and the Paragons and the soul deck. So it's really, and like you said,
I like that it gives life to cards that don't currently have a life in constructed play.
And Redemption needs a multiplayer format because currently, like multiplayer Redemption is kind of like Yeah. Like even 2v2 is kind of like, man. So like you kind of
Meh,
really,
meh.
and
I like that.
then like free for all multiplayer, like I played with the kids at a camp, and like we had fun just because it was novel and it was fun, but like
Yeah,
it doesn't feel very like strategic or like, okay, well, you have
not a lot of
lost.
strategery.
He's like, you don't have any defense, so I'm just gonna attack you. Okay, yeah, you soul,
Yeah.
like that
Well,
type of
I
thing.
mean,
Like,
that's kind of the way it goes, and most people build their decks slanted to where they have a lot of offense and minimal defense because you only feel like you really need to get one block because they
exactly.
usually just pass around souls until someone gets to 3 or 4, and then you really try to lock them down.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I know originally when he first shared about Paragon on Land of Redemption, I think was the first place where he wrote about it and shared it. I think he talked about some of the problems that he saw with multiplayer. And so multiplayer, honestly, if we're going to be honest, was kind of I don't think I'm going to make a bold statement here to say that it had the potential to be a toxic environment to play in.
Yeah.
I think, it's kind of like the way people see teams. I love teams personally. For all its quirks and problems, and I think it can be drastically improved, and I'm hoping that improvement happens and happens soon. And we've seen a little bit of that getting rid of the intro prep and whatnot, but I do believe that there is still room to grow with that format. But people look at it and they see the potential of the toxicity of the format potentially, and playing players like me that argue rules and things. I'm sorry, I said I wouldn't say anymore. I'm just had to throw out a jab at myself. But yeah, so I think some people see the value in it because they can sit down and within that potential chaos, they can still enjoy and have those games and those moments of laughter and whatnot and enjoy themselves. But a lot of people see it and they see just the negative that holds it back from being a more, accessible format. And so I think we need a multiplayer that kind of breaks that down. And he talked about kind of the struggle with that and trying to solve those problems.
Yeah, the big ones, the defense problem, the board state problem, time problem,
Yeah.
king making problem.
And so it comes back to, I'm super excited about the potential of Paragon. And that's why I'm really excited to talk to Kurt tomorrow night when, we throw this episode together with that. You won't have to wait till tomorrow night when you hear this. It'll be just in like 45 minutes or so on the recording here. But I'm really excited about that. And I really hope that it takes root. But you're right. We do need to see gameplay and we need to see that it actually does what it says it does. It feels like it does a lot when you look at the deck building. Like you feel like the way that he said that it should answer these problems, you look at it and you're like, okay, it looks like it should.
Yeah.
But I want to see it in action as well. So yeah, I think that's the next step is trying to get some gameplay footage. And I believe Jaden mentioned that he has plans to eventually do that.
Okay.
I think people have been trying to figure out how to make Paragon work on Lackey. And I think the easiest thing, because you need a Lost Soul deck, the easiest thing is almost to just use your token pile as your Lost Soul deck.
Agreed.
So I don't know how that works, but definitely I think that's where the next line of value for getting an overview of that is seeing some actual gameplay. And if you come to Nationals, there should be some playing of Paragon. I guess the next thing I have here is Redemption with Jaden, which has some interesting things if you want to go and check that out. The most recent thing, at the time of our recording, his most recent thing is what came out today, which is Lackey Grand Prix number 27. Wow, 27 already.
Wow.
Moving on. It seems like we were just doing Sweet 16 the other day, talking about the Lackey Grand Prix can drive, but it's done figured out how to drink at 21, and it's just kept going. So 27, round 1 versus Tim, and it's kind of a cool thing because you get both of the main content creators for YouTube videos together doing kind of the deck overview that Jaden usually does with Lackey, except for he's doing it with the Redemption CCG app website now in that video, along with Tim. But if you go to his last video, you get to see the final between him and Justin. Justin has his, he talked about it on the podcast, mentioned his triple sleeved 100 card Brown Tower deck. And Jaden plays a defensive heavy 63 card deck and takes him down 3-1.
That's crazy.
In probably one of the most grindy games you're ever going to see on camera, on stream or whatever. just kind of a wonky matchup, but kind of intense battles here and there. And there was a couple of lines of play that didn't quite get executed properly on both sides. So both of them felt like they left some
on the table.
Stuff on the table that might have got them to a full win. So it wasn't quite as grindy in their minds as maybe it appeared to the outsider. But that's some fun stuff to go and check out. But using my psychic vision, I can tell you that his latest thing, once this does come out, will actually be released tomorrow morning on Friday or tomorrow sometime, where he's talking about the Redemption Nationals name tags that we're working on. So, and we'll mention that in a minute when we do more Nationals-centric stuff here. But another thing we tried out was me and Jaden tried out. I was on the video with him, and we tried out Renee, our friend from Germany. He is Reth on Discord. He has created Redemption Coliseum, which is kind of like Magic the Gathering arena style, to where he's working on getting it to where you can play against an opponent directly through your web browser without having to have programming.
Wow.
There's a lot of bugs with it. I'll say that. And that's not to knock anything. We mentioned that in the video. At this point in what he's released is, we know it's not a complete product. We know it's not anywhere near a finished product. So right now, testing and reporting is how you can help, move that project forward. So we tested a couple of opening hands and things, and it was kind of cool because you get actions when you drop a fortress. It shows like blocks.
Yeah, it's
like
really
building
cool.
The fortress, throw
little graphics
out.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah, you play a good dominant, and there's just like, wah. It's just,
this is really cool. Check out the
really
YouTube
cool.
video on this. The thing's cool.
And the graphics are kind of fit for what Redemption is. So it's kind of a really cool concept, and I can already in my mind see the marriage between the Redemption CCG app and potentially a web browser where you can play the decks you built, with a click.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I can forecast ideas. I'm the idea man, and I'm willing to help with anything I can, but I can't I don't know how to make those things happen. But
yeah. If there's a button on Redemption CCG app that says Goldfish this hand, and like pops you into there, you immediately get 7.
Yes, that would be.
That's
see where
crazy.
The future is.
The future's
still
inside
cloudy,
John's head.
but it's kind of.
It's inside John's head.
Yes, and now it's inside your head because you've listened to this podcast. So here we are.
Inception. Wow.
Yes, it's a fantastic movie, by the way. So that's what I've got, and then I've got over here the Road to Nationals. And I always like to talk about the Road to Nationals when we get into tournament season. So we are less than 150 days away at the time this episode's going to come out. Nationals
We're on the road again.
We are on the road, and it's still like it's an abstract thing. It's like when you get in the car here in Alabama and you're planning on going to, you're planning on going to New York for the New York State tournament or something. Not that I'm planning on doing that again this year, but I wish I could. But, you've got that long trip, and then your parents are driving or whatever, time's just passing by, and you're in the back, you got your headphones in or whatever, and then you look up, and eventually you're only going to be 3 hours away, and then you're going to be an hour, and then you're going to be like pulling into the spot. Time is moving. It's a fast approaching date. So pre-registration is live. People need to be excited about this because I'm telling you, we are pulling out every stop we can. I can't tell you that it's going to be the best nationals ever, but I can tell you that we are planning for it to be. And if we fall short of that goal, at least, we're shooting for the moon. And if we fall among the stars, that's fine. But
although, if you think about it, shouldn't it be reversed? If you shoot for the stars, you might fall towards the moon because the stars are much farther away.
You're getting a little bit too
granular. Stop thinking about this.
I might have botched the whole thing. We just don't want to be Icarus and fly too close to the sun. You know what I'm saying?
We fly too close to the sun, we land on the moon, and we don't have any oxygen. That's just horrible.
Hey, but no gravity. Fat man can jump and dunk.
There we go. We go. That's why I'm on the
moon. So pre-registration is live. Get excited about it. Jaden, on that video, he shared with the name tags, and we are allowing people to submit a photo with their pre-registration that we are using for name tags. And we've got some cool ideas. We showcased the leader or the hosting team, all 4 of us. We showed our name tags, what they currently look like. Pictures may be subject to change, but you kind of see the concept. Each person is going to have the order that they register. That number is going to be on their name tag. And then we're going to use that for potential door prizes, giveaways, drawings, and things across the weekend event. We always call it a weekend event, but it's not really a weekend, but half weekend, half end of the work week. Event, the 3-day event, across the 3-day event, okay? 4 days if you count the cool stuff we're doing on Wednesday night. So there's the potential for us to be giving away things randomly, and those things are going to be tied to that number on your card. There is a deadline of registering before June 1st in order to guarantee you're going to get that, because we do have to have time to send off and get those cards printed and have time for them to be received and whatnot. And we don't want to. June 1st might be a little bit of aggressive saying we need this much time, but we would rather be safe than sorry. So if you want a cool name tag, please register by June 1st. In addition to that, with Nationals, some of the information that's come out, we mentioned the Ironman side event. Andy just put out a poll talking about the different options for it. He's really, I think since taking over the Ironman event at Nationals, he's really put in a lot of thought of what the community wants and how to make the event let the community have a say in how the event runs so that it kind of is more exciting to play, but also they feel like they have a way to kind of effect change and have things, this is a cool idea, suggested. And Andy is great about taking those suggestions and working them out and potentially using them. Now, I'm not saying that everything that you suggest is going to be a great idea that he's going to do, because obviously there's some logistics that need to go into it, and he's going to have to make some decisions on what is allowed, what is not allowed. But at the same time, it's kind of cool to see that he's sharing and giving kind of a voice to the community for that.
That's really cool.
In addition to that, and one of the options is, again, Paragon. A lot of stuff on this episode talking about Paragon, but the Paragon side event that's happening Thursday night, that's still planned to happen, but Andy's also opening the idea of potentially using Paragon as official games for the side event for Ironman. So if you sit down and you play, there's 4 people sit down and play, then potentially whoever wins that, because it's more difficult, maybe they get a token from each player that loses. So it's a way to rack up tokens faster and, without having to play quite as many games. Because I think one of the negative things about Nationals is that we just never have time for these side events that we set up. You can put a lot of work into them. You can create them, make all of the plans. But sometimes people just want to, after they've played all day in official categories, they just want to unwind, hang out, and not necessarily play. They want to go out to dinner and things. And sometimes it just doesn't leave enough time. So if you can capitalize and find ways for, some of the games you're already playing potentially to count, which is something that Andy's mentioned, maybe using, if you pair up in an official category, if me and you are both registered for Ironman and we play in Type 1, then making that count as an Ironman game as well. So that,
very helpful.
We don't have to play later for us to figure out who wins for Ironman. Anything that gets the tokens moving across the table faster and more frequently, I think is going to be good for the game. But Paragon is also one of those options. And then Paragon on Thursday night is still a go, with Kurt Hake being the one to run that event. And I think he's working on some potential cool things to go with that. I don't know if you guys can hear that in the distance, but apparently the nephew is not happy that I'm recording. So he's giving my wife some some loud feedback right now, but
oh man,
that'll be okay. Speaking of the nephew, I guess I talked about it on here that we were getting him tested for potential to see if he, displayed the characteristics and things that might be worth a diagnosis of autism, and he is not.
Okay.
So that is a, I don't want to say that that's a plus. It is a plus, but
It's a
not
plus.
like, people that are dealing with that. Like I'm very sympathetic to those people and things. And we wanted to get him tested so that if we needed to start working on things to kind of get him well adjusted with that. But he does not have that. But they did say he is 19 months, and they said he is somewhere between 6 to 9 months behind developmental milestones.
Wow.
Which is I mean, for the situation he's coming
Mhm.
from, it's very understandable. But so we got good news and also, a little bit of bad news with
Hard news, yeah.
all of that. And they want him to do all kinds of things and go to, occupational therapy, early intervention, speech therapy, all kinds of things. So he is a high maintenance child at the moment. But hopefully we can course correct some of that and at least make up for some of that time. So that
I'm praying
randomly
for that
just
for sure.
got talked about from the yelling in the background. So there we go. Way to get your way onto the podcast, bud. But also at Nationals, we are going to be running the third, I guess at this point we can call it annual, the third annual fantasy draft, and confirmed kind of tongue-in-cheek last episode recording is going to be hosted again by Justin Alstead. We've got a lot of cool things, including a way for people that sign up, whether you're drafted or not, to have a chance to win a box of the brand new set, assuming that it releases at Nationals.
Mhm.
Just based on the previous record, we don't have anything official saying that is happening. As soon as we do have something like that we can share as far as the, hosting team and the information that we get, obviously we'll be excited to pass that along. But right now, nothing official about a new set, but we kind of assume based on the last few years and the pattern of release that we can expect that. And if that does happen, then we will have a chance for you to win a box of the new set just for signing up to draft. Just doing a drawing with everyone that signs up. But then the team that wins, those select few that are on that team goes into a drawing potentially for another box, which is kind of cool. And then we have ideas to do kind of a bench and starting lineup each day so that we can branch it out and make it more like actual fantasy sports. So we've got a lot of plans for the fantasy
That's
draft.
exciting.
Yes. And I'm excited to share those eventually, whenever we get them more concrete and we move closer to Nationals and kind of have a little bit more confirmation on things. So with that, I guess I can tell you we've got some tournaments coming up that are of the state variety in the coming month. So we're finishing up February and we're moving into March, and this is kind of the height of that fever pitch that gets, everybody gets excited to show off cool things going into the tournament season. We're excited about it here at the podcast because it gives us a little bit more content. We can go over some tournament results. We can have a little bit more data for the power rankings and things like that. So we're excited for this time of year, especially. But over the next month, so in the month of March, we're going to have 3 state tournaments. Count them, 1, 2, 3.
Mhm.
The first state tournament is going to be our friends from Arkansas who just got done hosting Nationals in 2025. That is going to be March 20th and 21st at the Brooks Residence, which is where they usually host their tournament for that central play group that hosted Nationals. And all of these tournament entries are on the Cactus Game Design website, where you can go to current tournaments and find out all of the details. I believe you can also get a link to that by going to Land of Redemption under tournaments, and it'll route you there as well. And then we have Chad France in Oregon hosting the Oregon State Tournament, and that is going to be March 27th and 28th. And at the same time, so you've got that happening on the far west coast, northwest coast, maybe not on the coast, but in that area. You know what I mean? Region,
Yeah.
not necessarily on the coastline, but, and then over here in the East Central region, where you kind of have a lot of people that can travel within a reasonable amount of distance to get to it. So we usually have a large turnout. We have the Kentucky State Tournament. So that weekend is going to be key for finding out kind of which decks are moving toward the top, which players are kind of transitioning towards. These are the ones to look out for and things. So a lot of good data we're going to get from that weekend. Combined with Arkansas State, you have Oregon State and Kentucky State on March 27th and 28th. I think those 3 tournaments are going to be a great send-off for us into tournament season and kind of give us a lot of a night or a much better idea, I guess, of where things are going to stand. So what are your, if you had to guess right now, if you just threw out an expectation of what deck do you think across those 3 tournaments would people say that's the deck to beat? What is it? Got you on the spot right here.
The one I'm hearing about a lot about right now is the Brown Tower, and obviously these 100 card decks, they have a longevity that a lot of decks just can't match. And The Wilderness Exchanger that draws you cards, fantastic in a 100 card deck. I'm not going to say it's the best for sure, but like it's something I'm scared of. With the limited stuff I've seen coming back into it, it's the first thing that's on my radar. So, not saying it's definitely going to be the best. I'm not even saying I'm fully aware of everything that's going on, but it's the first thing that's popped into my head as danger, Will Robinson, like watch out for that type thing. So that's it's on my mind.
Well, I think I will stick with the notion of, yes, I acknowledge that 100 card decks are in a position, probably a more prime position to advance their cause than the standard 50 card deck at the moment. But with that, I will say that I still think something built around Daniel, and I'm not sure which version of Daniel. That was a conversation that recently happened on the Discord as well.
Yeah.
Not sure which version of Daniel the character, but some version of a Daniel deck pairing up one of those times to come defenses with Daniel-centric offenses, featuring the new Michael that has the potential to double band and things like that.
That guy's sweet.
I think that's going to be kind of the darling of the ball. I don't know if it will rise to the very top across these tournaments, but I think you'll see a high density of, the field. I think they'll have a higher meta share than most other decks. I think just because of the recency thing, like it's the new set, it's the cool thing to play. But also, I think it plays pretty straightforward in a lot of ways. It allows, like, if you're building straight Daniel, it almost allows you and pushes you toward building kind of a balanced deck, which can withstand a little bit more from the opponent and things. So I would say that I think that might be something to look forward to, and seeing which versions of those kind of rise to the top. Kind of like Joshua last year, like, whether it was winning, because I know we had Big Clay winning a lot of things, but you also had the I don't know, a large meta share of Joshua and Thieves decks and Joshua and Black and different things. So there was a lot of Joshua decks in the field, and then eventually there was a Joshua deck that won nationals, right? So that's kind of the way that it goes, and it kind of starts out by seeing kind of the different lines of play and variations and ways that people can build it out and things. So definitely looking forward to tournament season to give some of that. And it's kind of cool this year, knowing that I'm not playing at nationals. I don't have any pressure to actually try to do well at a tournament. Not that I'm going to try to, if I play in a tournament, not do well. But I don't have to worry about, trying to rack up any R&RS points or anything. I'm not worried about any of that. So I'm just cruising through. I might not even play at a lot of these state tournaments in every category that I would normally play, and might just kind of focus more on the camaraderie and hanging out and stuff. So I'm excited about tournament season, but at the same time that I flip that switch and, I'm not really worried about the competitive side as much, it's going to be cool to kind of see it from the spectator side a little bit more and, being able to like really analyze what other people are doing without trying to, what do I need to do to stop X, Y, and Z, and just kind of appreciate what other players are doing for what it is at face value. That's going to move us into quite possibly our favorite thing here on the podcast.
The following segment contains spoilers that may or may not have been approved by the Royal Order for the Secrecy of Expansion Sets. Proceed with caution.
Very nice.
Proceed with caution. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just say that since we came back recording, we focused on a lot of therapeutic things for me selfishly. So we haven't talked a lot about cool things. We haven't even talked about like fundraiser cards from the new fundraiser and things like that. At least, not in great detail. We might have mentioned in passing here or there. I don't recall, but man, spoiler season is upon us. And I am so fired up for it. Now, Gabe out of nowhere last night, dude, I am killing the fourth wall. The fourth wall does not exist around me. Like, I have ran through that thing. I'm a big guy. I popped through that thing like Kool-Aid, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, so the fourth wall is gone. But last night, so Wednesday night, we're recording on Thursday here, this part of the podcast. Wednesday night, Gabe just randomly, not randomly for him probably and the elder team, but randomly as far as I just checked Discord and he's like, hey, to celebrate the return of the podcast, what's your favorite episode? If I get 15, then I'll share a spoiler. Okay. So I'm going to put you on the spot right here.
Yeah.
I kind of shared mine because of all of the background things that affected it going in. I really enjoyed episode 26, I believe it is. Hold the Confetti Cannons with Brad. It was kind of a whirlwind episode with a lot of stuff going on and those things, and just sitting there tossing it back and forth. Just I don't know, the fond memories of that is still one of my favorite episodes. Maybe not my absolute favorite episode, but it's up there.
Mm-hmm.
What for you, whether as a listener, actually, I want to break it down two ways.
Oh, man.
Give me your favorite episode before you became part of the podcast as co-host, and then maybe your favorite since. That way you can't just cop out and say
no.
some episode way back when. You got to actually have a favorite of what you've done too. So what's your favorite?
So
you didn't think you were going to get put on the spot right here.
I know. They really, all the ones I've been on, like, they kind of just meld together. If I could point it to one, I think it'd be the initial one, just starting off here, because I felt so honored to be even part of this podcast. So just being here and just being on the audio, on the speaking side of the podcast, as someone who has listened to the podcast for so long, it was really cool for me to do that. So just that special sense of flipping sides, like, I'd listened to it for so long, and now I was actually the one on it. Honestly, I don't even remember everything we talked about on it. I just remember, like, how cool it felt to be like, I tell my wife, I'm gonna record a podcast. Please let me.
I felt like honestly, from my memories recording that, I feel like I put you in the corner a little bit. It was like,
that's fine.
We've got a new co-host, and like, then I started talking about, I was like, there's so many things changing with the podcast, and because I've been here and I'm the lead on all of these changes, I feel like I should speak to them. And I felt like there was a lot of like awkwardness of you're there, but you weren't really part of what I was talking about at the time. And then toward the end of it, I think I brought you back in focus a little bit more. But I was talking about swapping, and the potential fallout of, how it can be awkward navigating. Hey, John, thanks for sponsoring the podcast all this time, but we want to go a different direction. Hey, we brought Andy on. Yeah. And what all went into that. And, so I remember that, but that was definitely fun getting to share all of those changes and kind of, cast a light on the new direction and future of the podcast. And I think even though, we've maintained the consistency, no matter who the co-host has been, we will step away and stop recording on a moment's notice. We will go on hiatus like that, baby. We will go and visit Portland. We will go wherever. We will disappear. But guess what? We always come back. We always find our way back home to the mics, to recording. And that's one of the cool things about it is the fact that this podcast has existed through various stages of different life cycle changes for people or circumstances in life or different people that's been involved. And it's still here. And that's a testament, not necessarily to anything that I've done, but to the fact that there's people out there that listen that are interested enough in the podcast that ask me and sometimes, make me feel bad because they're like, hey, when is the podcast coming back? When's the next episode? And maybe some of that has kind of guilted me into jumping back on at different times. Not that I wasn't going to, but kind of rushing that more than I should in different circumstances. But every time we step away, we always come back, and that's great. So I definitely find value in that episode as well. But what is your favorite one from before you joined the podcast?
So I'm trying to think about those. I remember when I first got in to the game, I was going through all the podcasts. I listened to them like all twice, I think. Like just going, like I left my Spotify playlist, playing through all the podcasts and playing through all the podcasts. If I remember, at least I think the ones that were close to that, when you first started, you were talking about how rotation was happening. And I just found it so interesting to hear y'all talking about rotation as something that hasn't happened yet, or like it was still about to happen. And I was like, oh, it's already happened. It's just funny to me. Like, so that's one thing that stood out to me. Otherwise, I'm trying to look through the the names of these episodes to see if which one stands out specifically. Obviously, I love the interviews and stuff here, but yeah, I think one of the cool things was the podcast about rotation coming up. As someone who had already rotation already happened.
Yeah.
Let's see what
You already know what that looks like.
Exactly.
These guys were so young back then; they didn't know what the future held. Yes, kind of like a bad time capsule.
Oh yeah. Okay. Episode 1 is rotation is here, and episode 2 is don't touch that reserve.
Yeah,
Oh,
don't touch
okay.
that reserve, boy.
Oh, I love that. Okay, yeah. So episode 2 is so funny because I'm like, as someone who came in with the reserve rule already in, like I actually see the wisdom in it, and for you to be like, this is ruining the game. Like, what are you possibly doing? It's just funny to me because I'm like, I think it's a good idea. Like,
yeah.
Oh, and I guess remembers. There's so much redemption history I keep forgetting about, but like also our transition to the one territory class enhancement thing too. I don't know if we have a specific episode that focused on that.
I'm sure there was because there was at least the Schaefer solution.
Yes.
We
we
had Jared
podcast
on at one point talking about the problem and potential solutions to the aggro culture of deck building within Redemption and stuff, and the potential negative play experience fallout from that. But I will say one thing, and look, we're so off course now. We're in spoilers section here. We're supposed to be talking about cool cards, and we're going to get to that, guys. But Gabe really sent me down memory lane with this, and I started looking back at all of these episodes, and there was some people called out some cool ones, like Maxwell said that Bless Your Heart was his favorite one, and I just remembered that one because we were talking about Miss Betty, and I can just vividly to this day hear her telling me and trying to sell me to come to her house and pick up that weight bench, and she's like, it's a good weight bench, the kind you see in a gym, and then I show up and it's these concrete weights, and I'm just like, ma'am, you bamboozled me. But now I feel like I owe it to her as service to at least get it from her house, because that's her whole intent, was to just get it out of her way. I've already got a truck there. I've got help. It looked bad for me to be like, nah, ma'am, that looks like trash.
We're going to leave it here.
But yeah, so Miss Betty episode, that was funny when somebody called that out as their favorite. I believe that might be the episode too. Or there's one episode where like Brad toward the end of it, he would always, when we recorded, he would always get, we would record late and he would get a little loopy at the end. I think that episode or one of them, he like starts singing like pop songs toward the end. I don't, maybe that wasn't it, because maybe I titled that one, Oops, I Did It Again. I don't know. But anyway, so I started looking at some of that, catalog, just going down memory lane and, like playgroup development, talking about Type 2, talking about, the online tournaments and what it's like to play in those tournaments. There was a lot of things that we did in the past that was really like a resourceful type of episode that showed people, our kind of took down the barrier, made things a little bit more accessible of a topic to talk about and things, and created kind of a little bit more traction for certain things. And I just started thinking, man, if we ever struggle for what to talk about again, we can just go grab an old episode and go over a lot of that stuff again. But like playgroup development, even though there's a lot of good things in that, and I think we even had a follow-up a few weeks later when we did that, playgroup development right now is completely different, because I feel like you have so much more in your arsenal as a host and trying to get a playgroup started. I mean, someone can spend $50 now and get a 3 woes and a second coming from the fundraiser site. I mean, I remember we used to have to spend $50 or more to get just one of those cards. And then the fact that you have roots, which they don't get someone that's played Redemption a long time is going to get offended by this, but you don't get the bad cards at the back of the pack anymore that are not playable and things, at least when you open them. And I know that since we've opened packs now as established players, you see roots now and you're like, dude, give me that roots too, because I am sick of these cards. But to a brand new player, you're trying to, bring on board.
Exactly.
I mean, you've got so many roots, you can just give them to them.
No, seriously, and then they're good. They're good cards for beginners, like opposed to these old cards that have like, I can't read this. What in the world? Like, and it's completely different than the cards that the rest of the roots cards have a continuity with the rest of the cards. The root cards make sense. They're simplistic and they're good. And they're not insanely powerful, but they're powerful enough to actually do stuff. Like, it's just so much better than the old chaff at the back of the pack.
Yeah. And so I think that there's a lot of meat left on the bones of a lot of those topics that we could go over and, bring up to the current format of the game and things. Because a lot, like you said, we started this podcast it was something that I wanted to do anyway because I was missing Top Cut Savvy. And I was like, man, Redemption really needs a podcast. But then they had rotation and they were talking about changing the reserve rule. And there was a lot of things changing with Redemption at one time. And it was like, man, we need to have some kind of forum where we can talk about stuff like this and players can give, their thoughts and their opinions and they can just kind of, bounce things off of each other and have kind of a little bit of a way to share their thoughts on things versus, just in Discord and things. And I thought it was kind of a cool concept to have that and build that forum and platform. And here we are, we're approaching 100 episodes. And I think we've definitely accomplished what we set out to do with the podcast here. But what we haven't accomplished is what we set out to do when we played the spoiler clip. So let's get to some cards. Okay. So I'm looking at these cards. If you guys want to look at cards, one of the best ways to look at them, Tim has been doing a great job ripping the spoilers out of the channel because once there's a lot of conversation, they kind of get buried. And he's keeping up with them on Land of Redemption under Redemption CCG. And then you can go to spoilers and you can go and you can see the most recent spoilers. So what we're going to do, I know there's one we really want to talk about and we've hinted at and we've even discussed a little bit, but we're going to save that and we're going to go down. And we're going to start with the Spring 2026 promo. Because there's a new spring promo, and it's one that I've got to get my hands on because I'm telling you, I think that Empty Tomb is a very underrated theme
Archetype. Yeah,
and archetype. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the reason it's underrated is I think people see the value in the big, I'm going to go get Resurrection play, and I'm going to play that, and boom. And what was kind of supposed to be, or I don't know if it was supposed to be Empty Tomb's thing, but I feel like the Resurrection Empty Tomb, it was kind of supposed to be their thing, but it just worked with all GOC, so it got blended into other things, and Nativity, honestly, does it a little bit better because you can quickly get to Revealer, the Resurrection Revealer, and then it can get to that, and then you can bring in a bunch of heroes in a big opening turn play, and that fits more with where we were as a game with the aggro style of deck builder, at the forefront. And then you have Empty Tomb, which takes a little bit more of an approach of you're setting things up and you're having to use your resources to push yourself towards a central, goal of what all of your cards are trying to accomplish instead of I'm going to take the best thing from a bunch of themes and bring it together. The splash deck. And GOC, unfortunately, the way that it was built, maybe not unfortunately, but because it made it so easy to splash things, that took precedent over some of the individual themes. And I think that Empty Tomb really suffered in that. It kind of didn't get a lot of traction because of that, because it was easier to take the cool pieces of Empty Tomb and splash them in other things.
Yeah.
But
it became a sub theme, like a helper, not its own thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so one of the big heroes for Empty Tomb was Peter. And Peter was clay and green on his meek side, and he was purple on his, ability side. You got Empty Tomb that's white, so it didn't really
doesn't fit.
Like you can use it with it, but it didn't really jive as well.
No, it didn't.
So
didn't jive.
Now we've got. Is Peter? Does he set the record for the most identifiers that you can throw on someone?
David and Peter.
I feel like Peter's got him beat.
I
you
don't
got
know.
Disciple, Empty Tomb, Jerusalem, Martyr, Missionary, and Prophet. David is what? Prophet, Missionary,
King of Judah,
or not Missionary? Giant Slayer.
Giant Slayer, King of Judah, King of Israel, musician. So they're
we're gonna have to.
Close.
That's a
close.
trivia thing.
Yeah.
If someone else is beating Peter, I want someone out there to let me know. And maybe David does beat Peter, but which card has the most identifiers applied to it? That's what I want to know because there's some identifiers are not printed on cards, and they still have others that apply to them. So you might have to go to the Ordeer, which is the official list of redemption identifiers and things to see. I'm wondering because it looks like they went to the very edge of what they could on Peter here, Peter the Believer. I'm wondering, is there any that they didn't put on here?
I think they got every one of them.
I think they did
more.
But just a curiosity thing. But anyway, Peter the Believer is 1/12. So he is an initiative beast. Although he's
Mhm.
not better than Sad Hendricks at initiative. I'm just saying.
Although
Sad
his
Hendricks is
ability
0-10, so he's guaranteed even over the worm. And if the worm blocks Peter, the worm gets to play a card,
does it?
doesn't
Does
it?
it? Think
Because
about it.
his
Look at
one
his
is
look at
beating.
take a second.
His
Look at his
one is
text.
beating the one on
Look,
worm.
look at his text though.
Well, look at his text.
Look at his text.
Let's see. What does it say?
Yeah.
You may bounce a human in a territory, kind of on theme, right?
Mhm.
While alone, if blocked from hand, kind of on theme. I'm
Mhm.
loving it. You may play a gospel enhancement, cannot be interrupted.
There we go.
So if he is alone
He skips initiative.
and they block from
From hand.
hand, you still get initiative. You get to play something.
He skipped
CBI
initiative.
playability.
It's better. It's fast. It's faster than just initiative. It's they can't even dominate in between. Like if they
Yes.
block from hand, you get to play. Assuming so once they're done with all their banding, whatever, like you get to play the first card, no matter what.
Did you like the way we went around the bringing in the worm and stuff to get to that? That's so cheesy. But anyway,
but like
but
Empty Tomb
he's
Peter,
great.
he's awesome. Yeah,
He's great to get initiative, even if you're not looking at the ability, just his numbers. And so I think there was a conversation there about why you would want to push him and his playability. It feels almost redundant. But one of the fears about pushing a solo hero is there's so many ways to get around a solo hero. You've got Fallen Away, you've got Christian Martyr, you've got other ways that you can interact, with something in territory that can capture. What is it, like magic charm? No,
charms. Yeah,
there's one artifact that captures a hero in battle. Unholy Writ, I believe it is. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you have those outside things. So when you push a solo guy, you are at an inherent risk of someone playing something that interacts and takes away your solo rescue. Peter laughs in the face of those things.
He does.
Peter comes in and says, "No, homeboy, I'm playing something before you do anything else." I don't know what the best play for him is, but I definitely think he is a tool that Empty Tomb needed. And I'm interested to see. I don't know if it'll quite have the impact that's like David the Unifier had for Purple Warriors, because the Purple Warriors felt like they were missing a little punch. And then David the Unifier came out, and I feel like it gave them everything that they needed to be a top flight deck because of all the things that can link off of the fact that David is now in your deck and he's on color and he's on point. And now you have a Peter the Believer that's, on theme and on point. It's in the right brigade. I'm kind of interested to see how people build that deck out now and that archetype.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. The Empty Tomb Peter here is fantastic. Like all the Peters are Empty Tomb, but like this one is specifically built for Empty Tomb. And in that sense, like he's on brand. The bounce, the ability to play, the gospel enhancement. He's very interesting. All CBI is a very good modifier. Like I'm excited to see what he can do, for sure. Like I like having this guy come in and then a hospitality and Bethany come out and banding in a huge set of people, maybe banding in a tosser, maybe banding in a
maybe we're back to splashing because he can just go and play a banding enhancement and bring everybody in.
Exactly.
But I think it's cool, his ability, and I think his ability for who he is as a character in the Bible and what his story was is kind of cool, because when he pulled that sword out and cut was it Malchus's ear?
Yeah.
When he did that was a premature reaction. Like he just jumped on the scene and reacted. And you push him into battle, and dude is just reacting. He's pulling that sword and he's ready to go before you can even respond. And maybe you need to say, "Calm down, Peter." You can wait to play that enhancement, but Peter's ability says, "No, I gotta cut your ear off, dog.
I gotta cut off your ear."
So I think that maybe that's the nerd in me, but I saw that when they first shared this. I was like, oh, that kind of jives with me. I can sell that.
I agree.
I will give you the floor here. You want to talk about the state promo that we have here?
Yeah, here. So we got Bound to the Law. We have a curse here. It's a gray curse, 1/5 on its enhancement side. Again, that's an evil enhancement. This is a curse. The evil enhancement is negate and discard a hero. And the artifact side is restrict players from controlling more than one hero in battle. So very interesting here.
Oh, man. It's almost you play that card, so now they have to block Solo, and you go in with Solo Peter.
Yep. Well, it's one more than one hero in battle, so you can still control more than one evil character.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
But still, like, that is very powerful against any banding offenses that can't negate this. So maybe Daniel offense, depending which type of Daniel. Like, actually, all Daniels like to band, right? So, like, this will put a hitch in the craw of any Daniel banding
Hitch in the
offenses.
crawl. I like it. I like it. I knew you were from Texas.
But yeah, the enhancement side is not the strongest. As often we see for for covenants and curses, that with this new format of trying to limit the amount of text on a card, you really don't have a lot of room to put in a lot of power on them, both sides. So the enhancement side is pretty weak. Negate and discard a hero. Like,
I would have loved to see the power level boosted of, like, maybe negate and discard a good card.
Yeah, good card. CVP.
Something.
Like, even discard and card a good card, CVP would actually not be that strong. It would just be, but they don't have room. They could only put one line of text on this, so that's why. And the flexibility does make it stronger in that sense that, like, you don't have to use this as an enhancement. When you're playing this card, you're probably playing it mostly as an artifact, but that means that every once in a while, if it actually matters as an enhancement, you can play it as an enhancement. So, Bound to the Law, very interesting at stopping those high band offenses. What's the name of the Roots limiter in battle again? I forget. They had the whole Tabernacle deck built around it.
Oh,
but I forgot.
Honeypot used it.
It was
what is it? Pot of Mana?
Pot of Mana, yeah. So Pot of Mana is the most similar card to this, and we know that Pot of Mana is a powerful card. So this only restricts heroes, but the other thing is this also has a very powerful interaction with side battles too. So if you can get them having a hero, one hero in battle, if you try to get them another side battle, and they can't bring in another hero, and I believe that at least I've seen some talk about this on the ruling threads, and I believe that there is some positive interactions with that. Again, I'd have to get some more verification on that, but if I remember correctly, there's some positive interaction with side battles for this. So very cool card, Bound to the Law.
The regional promo is going to be a card called I Am Grace, and it's got a picture of a little girl. This is Roberto Ferruzzi. I'm probably killing that name in a negative way, but classic art here. It's a little girl with her hands held in a praying motion, looking up. And so even though the card is I Am Grace, and that's from the perspective of, like, not her, but now I'm going to assume that this little girl's name is Grace.
Is Grace. That's Grace.
Like, I am Grace. So here's Grace.
She's
great. On this card
Grace
praying.
Ferruzzi, Roberto Ferruzzi's daughter.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Sure. We'll go with that. But this is a covenant. It's kind of cool that you have the state promo that does a curse, which one thing to mention just in passing is Bound to the Law curse. I am so glad they got rid of the snake icon for curses and just made it mirror covenants, just the opposite. I think that was something that took a little bit of an adjustment to get used to when you were still seeing some with the curse icons, but now, we've got enough of them that look like this, that this feels like the normal now. And it also, it should have been like this from the start, which is a course correction that the leadership team did, and I'm glad that they did, but I'm glad that now we're starting to, have that to where these cards look the exact same. The only thing that is different is you can tell the alignment on the enhancement side is different, which there's not a separate, card type that potentially someone could think that this is, which is cool. On the enhancement, it is a clay enhancement. 4, 3 are the numbers. And the good enhancement ability is discard all evil cards in battle. And then as a covenant, so the artifact ability, you may take a hero from reserve or discard a demon. This to me feels like potentially our phase 3 of redemption, if we ever rotate again. The new version of like Covenant with Abraham, where you can, play a covenant to get a hero out of your reserve. But then it throws in, instead of taking a sight, which is kind of now a defunct card type in the game or whatnot, you have, the ability to discard a demon. So kind of cool. I do think that there's potential utility for that, especially Book of the Covenant lines of play where you can pop this from your reserve and immediately go get a hero. If you don't want to use like Covenant of Prayer as a one-time thing, and maybe you have multiple heroes you want to grab over the next couple of turns, then I could see it being used.
Yeah.
And then discard all evil cards in battle. No modifier there. I'm not sure how many times you'll be able to get that to push through, but kind of a cool card.
Yeah.
I do feel like I am slightly disappointed in these two cards together because not one of them was that WoW card.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like last year with Prince of the Air, like it was such a cool thing to have like a chase regional card to where people wanted to go to more tournaments. They were willing to, buy for a higher price than, what they normally sell for regional promos. And it just injected a lot of excitement around the game when that came out as a promo. So I was kind of hoping one of these promos would be on that level. And I know that you can't always throw out a card that is that strong and potentially meta warping.
Mm-hmm.
But I was kind of hoping to see one of these cards be that kind of chase element card, and I don't think either one of these are. They're still going to be nice cards to have. Don't get me wrong. But, I mean, I was trying to find ways to get to other regional tournaments last year to get more copies of Prince of the Air. And I'm still going to potentially go to multiple regional tournaments this year and things, and definitely going to multiple states, at least 3 of them. So I'm definitely going to get a lot of these, but you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I was going to say I Am Grace definitely seems like a step under the power level bound to the law. I Am Grace is really going to hinge on how important discarding a demon is, because like as a rule, like I almost never play artifacts that only work from reserve or if they do work for this reserve, they better do something really fantastic, like grabbing a bunch of cards from reserve at once. Like don't just have a card that only takes one card from reserve at a time, because the first turn of the game, I'm not getting anything with that. And then like I don't want to draw that turn, and then later in the game, I better get some big value out of it really fast. So the discarding of the demon is a big part here. We note that it's not in a territory. So if they ever print a card that lets you activate a covenant mid battle, this is going to be a really strong way to blow up a demon mid battle. I don't think there's a single card that does it right now. But if there is, like this is actually a really good way to blow up a demon in battle, because as we know, when you blow up a character in battle through an artifact, they get special initiative, but it is a special type of special initiative where the card that is doing the special initiative is not in the battle itself usually. So if this activates in your artifact pile, blowing up a demon, they can't use it off the battle. They need to specifically negate a neutral card that you have, or one of your cards that's specifically your card, not a good card, because as an artifact, it's not a good card.
I tell you what, future casting, I don't know if they have plans to make a card that will activate a covenant mid-battle, but I'm telling you, I want one now.
Yeah.
So you maybe you just opened up Pandora's box of creation there, or perhaps Tyler, the creator, the crazy mind that he is, tinkering and things. Maybe there's a reason, and maybe you just nailed it, right on the head. Maybe there is a card that lets you activate something in battle, like interrupt the battle. You may activate a covenant from deck or reserve or something. I think potentially because of the far-reaching abilities on covenants, that it would have to be limited in some regard, like a clay, a New Testament clay covenant or something. But yeah, that'd be really cool to see that paired up, and then that would give a lot more value to something like I Am Grace here, because I mean Grace is a cute little kid.
Yeah.
Like she's trying her best here.
Yeah,
So,
Grace Ferruzzi is she's praying hard, but you've gotta say she's got to wait for her time to show up in the metagame. So I think Bound to the Law has a little bit more potential, but again, it's not that like super wow factor. I think Bound to the Law has a bit of a brewer's touch that like I can see this being used.
With the side battle
I would be surprised to see I'm Grace used without a heavy demon meta or a card that's gonna give it the glow up it needs. But it has potential in the future. So that's what I'd say on those.
All right. Well, you want to tell us about Women of Israel here?
I do want to tell you about the Women of Israel.
The very first Roots 2 spoiler that we have gotten.
Exciting. 7-5. Sorry.
to specify, we got this a while back before the root spoiler that was released last night with the game talking about different episodes of the podcast and things. So I just want to be clear that this was the first Roots 2 spoiler, maybe several weeks ago, a few weeks ago. I don't know. It feels like it's been a little while.
So, Women of Israel, 7-5 White Brigade. Generic involves music wilderness, so you can bring this character back into battle 4 times if you want to. Actually, as many times as you want, but you can get 4 times the effect if you can find a way to bring this into battle multiple times. Actually, type 2. Let's see this here. So the ability, you may discard an evil enhancement from a deck, may ban to a wilderness female. So if you open up an opening hand with 4 of these in type 2, you can just Woman of Israel, Woman of Israel, Woman of Israel, Woman of Israel.
But what's sad is the way type 2 works as a format, though. You're just taking out 1 enhancement 4 times because you don't want them to have any copy of it. So your 4 cards take out their 4 cards.
It's pretty funny. Maybe ban to a wilderness female. I believe you can also ban to Miriam off of that. And I'm not sure if Miriam can ban to other characters, so I'm pretty sure she can. But this is there's a few versions of Miriam that banned, at least one version that bans. So this here looks like an interesting, again, Roots doesn't tend to have the most high-level power level cards, but this card actually has potential just because it is generic, just because it can ban, and because it has a discard. Like this is something that could actually see use. Again, I wouldn't be expecting this to blow up your Type 1 tables anytime soon, but I could see this in a Type 2 deck for sure, if you have a deck that's built around it.
Let me ask you this. So I said it's got some cool identifiers. What do you think the significance of Women of Israel being listed as involves music versus musician? You think it's just because it's not an individual person that it involves music?
Yeah.
It feels distinctly different because usually we're seeing musician on hero cards.
Yeah, I think you hit on the nail there. The verse says all the women went out after her with tambourines, with dancing. So some of the women are just dancing, and some of the women are using tambourines. So they're not all musicians technically. Some of them are just dancing. So involving music seemed like the right identifier for this one based on the text, and I think you got it right there.
We've been here on the spoiler section for a minute. Let's just get to the crown jewel here. The fact that my boy is now in the game. And guys, I've already claimed it. I'm getting the first signed copy of this card. When Roots 2 comes out, he'll sign one for you later on. But the first one he's pinning is definitely coming my way. I've already called dibs on it. Okay. We've got Ager getting recreated from an old set for Roots 2. But he's no longer Ager. He has glowed up. He's got a cool new name, and his name is Ager the Wise. So we've got Ager the Wise. He is a 3/3 purple hero. Man, I feel like these numbers don't do you justice. Infinity.
Never get initiative.
You never get initiative, but you have a playability that if you get initiative, you may reveal a player's hand. And this is literally, we discussed and talked about this. And I say we discussed, I mean, you and Tyler discussed, and I was just there, fly on the wall. But episode 79, Tyler, the creator, you guys made this card basically on that episode.
It's really
You
cool.
may reveal a player's hand, select up to 1 good card. They may give it to you to draw 3, cannot be negated.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, what is this? Well, you just grab a weak card, and maybe they give it to you so that you can draw 3, or so that they can draw 3. But really the beauty is the potential for something like teams, shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not real sure how I'm not sure how applicable the ability actually is, but it's fun. It's kind of cool, the story of the fact that you guys were talking about it on the podcast. I do wish this guy had an identifier, some identifier to make him a little bit more playable as far as throw him at the end of a ban. But I mean, unless you got something that just bans to a hero like Righteous Seeker, there's not a lot of things getting to him unless we get more cards created to where they're maybe ban to a Proverbs hero.
Yeah.
Because right now we don't have anything like that I know of. I won't say for sure with certainty, but Ager the Wise, and they took the old art, and it's fantastic. It's crisp, It's clear, it pops. And my dude, you got Ager the Wise in the game.
Awesome,
So
man. This is exciting.
that gives a little bit of credence whenever we start rolling it back and doing the Ager the Creator stuff, because you're in the game, big dog. You're like EA Sports. If it's in the game, you're in the game.
It's in the game.
What do you think about Ager the Wise?
I'm excited. Just as a quick side note, if you want to check out Proverbs 30, he's got some really good sayings in there. In a sense, I picked it as he's got this phrase where it says, "Surely I'm more stupid than any man." Understanding, like, talk with humility. Understand that, like, you have flaws in what you know, flaws in what you think, and he gives a really his words, they have such a wisdom to them, and that's why I gravitated to this biblical character as my online name. But he really has a high view of God, a low view of himself. He speaks for contentment. So that's just my side note on why I picked this character as my avatar online, to just as someone to represent me. But in terms of the actual card, like it is definitely one of those more let them cook type vibes here. Again, I don't think this is the type of thing that's going to ever see a ton of play, type 1-on-1. I think this is the type of thing you're going to want to do for teams, like, get some good combos going where you swap cards with your ally, get them to draw 3, that type of thing. You're also going to be playing this card in draft, and limited and sealed. So in this one, I'd say in general with Ager the Wise, you're going to be just honestly, it's mostly just reveal a hand, cannot be negated. Because usually you're not going to want to select a good card for them unless you know for sure that it's going to go good into your way. And so generally speaking, if I attack you with Ager the Wise, I'm probably not going to be selecting a card. I'm just going to reveal your hand and not select a card. And if I do select a card, you probably shouldn't give it to me because that means I know something that you don't know. Since I've seen your hand, you haven't seen my hand. So in general, I would say that if you're playing against an opponent that you think knows the game and they select a good card, you should probably not give it to them unless you have some big plan that's going on. Like, you got to be a big brain situation to actually give somebody a card.
I hate to rain on your parade a little bit, but if you choose to reveal their hand, you've already done the May ability. You must select a card.
Select up to one good card.
Oh, up
so
to.
You can select
okay.
0.
Yes, you're right. So you can select up to, and you can choose 0. Okay. Yeah. I see where you're getting that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking you may reveal, but once you do that, it just says select. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure if you select 0, they can't give it to you to draw 3 because you can't give 0. But we'll see if that's the actual. I assume that's what it is. But yeah, so
don't bring up ruling problems with it already.
In general, I think in draft and in sealed, if this happens and somebody selects a card, you should probably not give it to them unless you're big braining them. And that's the cool thing. Like, this gives you a chance to do some big brain plays in sealed and limited. Like, somebody could be like, "Oh, I know for sure if I get this card, it's going to be amazing." And you're like, "Actually, I know in my deck I have a card that's going to totally like fix this if I draw it." And so, like, this could be one of those big brain plays, but in general, I think this is mostly just to reveal a hand, which is not bad for limited. Like 3/3, good initiative, reveal a hand. It's a lot of juice in limited where you're like, okay, I know exactly what they have. I got good initiative. It's going to be a good attack here. So I like this card for limited, for sealed. Definitely not the strongest like raw power, but he is a wise guy. He plays around. He plays a mind game. So I'm liking this card. Very cool. The art's amazing. Did they use AI to blow it up, or did they find better original art?
I'm not sure on that, but I would assume that with the way that classic paintings, they're getting scanned by, converted into graphics, like a digital version. I would assume that technology has probably come a long way since Ager was originally printed. So there's probably better art available, or better
files.
Digital art file of that piece available. But I also know that Gabe is a wizard with Adobe and things, and making art pop and things and whatever. So I'm not sure how it came to be. Maybe one day we can get Gabe back on for one of those repeat kind of episodes people talked about with story time. So maybe. But what did you say?
What wizarding school did he go to?
Yeah, what wizarding school? I'm pretty sure he went to Hogwarts. I don't know. I was gonna name the I don't know if you're big into Harry Potter or anything, but when they come for the Triwizard Tournament, I
Oh
was
yeah,
going to try to name one of the other obscure
I don't know the other
schools,
ones. Yeah,
and I couldn't remember the name.
that's
So,
funny.
okay, we'll move on. So that's it for spoilers. We're going to jump into the community mailbag here, and we're going to try our best to run through quite a few questions I've got lined up here, but maybe we won't spend as much time on each individual one.
Now, it's your chance to join the podcast and have your voice heard as we get ready to answer your questions with this week's Community Mailbag.
All right. The return of the community mailbag. So I'm going to jump right in here. I mentioned it a little bit kind of at the top when we were talking about the redemptionccg.app updates. And we've got one here from Baboony Tim that says, what's a feature in the redemptionccg.app website that you'd like to see built? What's something you'd like to see improved? Well, Tim, I'm glad you asked, brother, because I've got you. I want to be able to get on that thing and use the full functionality on mobile. That's what I want. Right now, what you have, I want to be able to do that exact thing on mobile without any drop off between the web version and mobile. And I know that mobile is probably something that's already on the horizon or maybe already in your bag of planned tricks to deploy upon the community. But I'm really looking forward to that because I can't tell you how many times I see the link somebody post in Discord now, and I want to click it through the app, or I click it through the app on my phone, and then I don't get the same functionality, just like I do with the website. So I know that that's probably already coming, but I think that is where I think a logical next step is. And then I don't know. I'm not a wizard. We've been talking a lot about wizards on this episode for some reason. I did not go to Hogwarts. I'm not a wizard. No big giant came to my house and said, "You're a wizard, Harry." They didn't say that to me. They said, "Get your butt to school. You're just a normal kid." That's what they said. So I don't know the coding and things that go into it. So I can't tell you how
somebody
feasible
shot your
this
owl
is.
right before it got to your house.
They shot the owl, so I never got the letter.
I just see this guy like, oh look, that's good. That's a good meal. That's a good meal right there.
Yeah, owls don't carry letters through Alabama. That's all I'm saying. Somebody shot that down and was like, "Nah, that don't look right." I just saved a national security issue, and then went back to drinking his Budweiser. Anyway, so I don't know how easy it would be, but when a deck is built, we can take a list from Lackey and drop it in and make that deck appear in the deck builder app or the Redemption CCG app. We can make that deck appear, and it does, like the generic checks, and then you can do a couple of things and then make it public. It's easy to take the Lackey list and bring it in. What would be cool, and I don't know how this works because if you don't have the Lackey list as the raw data already, you would have to merge the two and kind of have it checked to create it. But it would be really cool to export as a Lackey file any deck that you go. So there's public decks. I see Tyler's dropped 50 decks. Well, now I want to try it out instead of having to take that list and manually build that or asking Tyler directly for it. It'd be nice if there was a Lackey file, or you could export into a Lackey file and load those cards into Lackey as a quick thing. So those are the cool. That's one that's more realistic or a thing, just seeing it on mobile, and then one that's kind of a potentially it's too much, whatever. But that's where I would be at. What about you, sir?
So we talked about it earlier, but I'm thinking that my main thing here would be to actually introduce a gold fishing button. Like that'd be super cool, just to immediately get a hand of what can you expect out of this type of thing? Draw a few cards, like see how the deck plays out a few times, reset.
Okay.
Like
okay. I love your idea. And your idea is kind of my idea. Just is Lackey is how we do that now. If there was an option just to goldfish, then you can scratch the whole Lackey. I'll go manually build if I want to play it in a game.
Yeah.
But if I could just goldfish it right there, I'm good with that. Just carry on.
Yeah. But yeah, that'd be really cool. And honestly, like considering like I'm not even fully explored it right now. Just as I'm going through it, it's amazing. So like that's the only thing that comes to mind right now currently. Maybe give me a few more months and I'll find something else I'd like to add. But like I'm already blown away by this. Like maybe you can add
Yes,
some
it's
more
great.
analytics, some like brigade count type thing and some other stuff. But
Well,
like
you already have your Matthew count if you export
exactly.
it. When you export it into a PDF or whatever, it
See,
gives you
like
like the Matthew count, and so
this is awesome. So yeah,
some of
like
that would be easily probably tracked in the main view of the deck.
yeah. So I'm loving it right now. So that's what I have to say, and I think it's really awesome.
So the next one, this one hurts. There's no way to say it. I'll let you read it. Nah,
Yeah. What does Genesis need to actually be the right choice to play at a national tournament? That's from John Early.
okay. And I told John, I said that actually is kind of painful and mean and breaks my heart, but it's kind of true. So I get it. So Genesis, and maybe that's why I had so many issues with timeout and people slow playing, is because Genesis right now, the way that you can construct it, it has a lot of good. It doesn't have a lot of great.
Mm-hmm.
And there are great pieces, but Genesis as a constructed deck now, the best way that you can build it, I think, is Patriarchs, and I think it's using a blend with Cloud of Witness, Abraham, and certain Patriarchs, but not a lot of the IR Patriarchs. And I think with that, you have I just don't think they have a really strong counter strategy. They don't make your opponent worry about anything that they're doing. They're good at gathering resources. They're good at searching out things, but counters cripple the deck, absolutely cripple the deck. Now there's a couple of pieces to where they can draw pretty well. You also just got first animals, but that forces you to play a weaker defense in animals right now. So until more animals come out, they're not great to play as your main defense. It's kind of cool to have a Pride of Lions package, but if you're forcing yourself to have those cards in hand to get the draw on first animals, you have to throw them in your main deck. So you can't just have kind of I'm going to stash these in reserve and go to it for turn 2 block or whatever. So I think Genesis is in a spot to where the counter strategies that they had, which was Enosh, negating neutrals, and also you had Goshen for a little while. Both of those are watered down and weak now because there's so much mono brigade and there's not as much meat flip stuff happening consistently to where, at least for the Genesis deck, to where you can turn your Enosh on consistently. And you never want to rescue with him. But I also think, if we're going to be honest, I hope leadership doesn't get mad at me. But the truth of the matter is what Genesis needs is a fair shot. Genesis needs a fair shot. And I say that, and I'm 100% like, I think that there is, because there's so much involved in, and all the stories and things in Genesis, there's so much Genesis that they weaken the individual pieces because they don't want it to get too strong in card design, or they have in the past. If you look at Jeshua, who top decks a good card, in battle cannot be negated and plays a fortress from deck and can ban to a push exilic hero. He does all of that. And then you look at Rue the Shepherd. If you top deck a Genesis card, a good Genesis card, you may draw one. It may ban to a Meek Antediluvian or something like that. Something crazy. Like just weak and watered down. Like there's no... And you just compare. Those two cards are doing the same thing in principle. Top deck a good card, draw it. I would rather play the one that's not in my brigade than the one that is in my brigade. So I think that they need a counter strategy built in, or they need to pair with a defense that has a strong counter strategy. So something there, and then take the training wheels off some of the cards. Just do it. But I digress. I won't even worry about you answering that one. We'll just move on. Should 100 card decks be banned? And we got a second question about this of like what you could do to answer this. And then a mention of maybe the woman with child should be banned because it can go and get a dominant and play it. But we'll just kind of wrap all that up into this question here from Maxwell. Should 100 card decks be banned? Power level decreased as far as making it a singleton format, but still allow 100 cards? Or should it stay the exact same way it is? What do you think?
So actually, I was thinking about this earlier today. Like I do think that 100 card decks get kind of oppressive if they can stuff up a 50 card deck. It just feels so bad to be playing against a 100 card deck if they got a successful block in, if they got a successful attack in, they've drawn a ton of cards, And if they slow down your 50 card deck and they sped up themselves, now you realize like they're not going to run out of gas. The whole game, they're going to be playing straight gas out of their deck. Like your 50 card deck's about to run out of gas. It feels bad. And
Oh
like,
no,
I'm
they
not
just
sure.
played their woman with, or their
Exactly.
the child is, what is it? Lost child found.
Lost
So
child found.
okay, now I don't have to worry about that card again. Oh, the very
it's
next
second.
turn they play their other
Yeah.
copy of it. Yes, they don't run out of gas. I won't
Exactly.
say that they don't run out of gas total, but they don't run out of gas before the standard 50 card deck runs out of gas.
Yeah. I was listening to one of Babuni's videos where he's commenting on E-Man versus the Brown Tower, and like he's like, "Oh, Heyman came in with Heyman's plot, and that was a really bad one." And then the next turn he did it again. Like, "Oh yeah, there's 2 of them in this deck." Like he's destroyed 6 of your characters, CBN. And you're like, okay, like so. I do wonder if and Maxwell's very right on here. I feel like there's 2 ways you could really fix this. You either limit to everybody to 50 to 56 cards, or you make everything singleton. You don't give anybody a bonus for going over 100 cards, which is the 2 card up to 2 of duplicate cards. And honestly, those sound like good if we're forced to get to that situation. But I think the meta has to force that to happen first. Like I don't think we want to make changes willy nilly. Like while 100 card decks do seem strong, they have to prove themselves. And if I remember correctly, they did not prove themselves last nationals in that sense. Like they did okay, right? Tim did okay, but it wasn't 100 card decks didn't dominate nationals last year, if I'm correct. So until they're actually dominating nationals, I would not
counter argument.
Okay.
And I do think that Maxwell has the right of it here. I think the solution, if you get to where you have to change something, either you limit it type 1 to 50 cards, not 56, not whatever. It's almost like Pokemon has, what is it, like 60 card decks or something?
Yeah.
Whatever
it's
it
40,
is.
But yeah.
Okay. I don't remember the exact number. I just know it's different than our 50 cards by 10, I think, one way or the other. And then other card games, they have a straight, this is how many cards are in your main deck. Not a lot of games, if any.
60, right?
I can't think of one off the top of my deck to where you have such a disparity. You can go 50 to 150. That's already kind of, and it feels like that's one of those things that lingers from the previous iterations of the game and previous, stages of the game, eras of the game, and it's just kind of existed. It's almost like being able to check in multiple decks at nationals. It's something that was allowed, but only allowed because it used to always be allowed and things. And, we decided that it didn't make sense for that to continue to exist in the current state of the game. I wonder if this is kind of in that same vein to where, just dropping it down to 50 cards kind of forces, it takes away a lot of the potential strategy. I want to play a little bit heavier defense. I want to get that extra dominant things. But it would make things so much more streamlined from a deck building rules standpoint.
I do like that for sure. Like it gives a sort of cleanness to the game.
Yes.
Like if you can have your type 1 deck list rules, get rid of all that junk about like this many per 50 cards, this many, but like you can just say type 1 deck lists are always 50 cards. And that's the other thing about when you get to a 100 card deck list in type 1, it becomes a pseudo type 2 deck list. It's not exactly type 2, but it feels like it's not the same thing. And that means like you're playing a type 1 deck versus a kind of type 2 deck. And it's kind of like, this is kind of awkward. If I get stalled, now I'm playing in his territory, it feels kind of bad. So like I do see the niceness of having a clean 50 card rule. Like honestly, like kind of appeals to me, but part of me like fights back.
I mean, it would feel bad to lose the flexibility, and the individual expression within the deck building phase. But is the overall pro of
benefit,
it, like the benefit of it, does it outweigh the nostalgic player that's not going to get to? And maybe you could even change it to where those are classic rules. So where if you want to play classic, you can play up to whatever and throw that into that, mesh pool of like, you can do all kinds of crazy things because you're using the old scroll cards. You can play 100 cards, whatever. But if you're playing modern type 1 rotation format, it's 50 cards and 50 cards only. And I think that would clean things up. And we've seen the benefit, the hard benefit of cleaning things up and streamlining and simplifying everything. And everyone seems to acknowledge the benefits of simplifying rules and things. And so I wonder if that just doesn't mean that this is the natural way to go.
Mhm.
But I don't know necessarily if that's what I think is best. I think you could do singleton, but I feel like that, and still making it singleton, but still allowing up to 100 cards or 150 cards. I think that's just, if you're going to clean the game up and make a rule change about deck building, it almost feels like singleton 50 cards. You just make it all at once, and just,
Yeah.
we didn't like the reserve rule like you were talking about.
Mhm.
We didn't
Yeah, turned out
necessarily
good.
think great things about that, and it's turned out to be a great thing. So this would be one of those things. I think there would be initial pushback and things and griping from some community people, maybe even me. But
John, you
yeah,
you might be a wizard. You got me. Like
I
you
might.
won me over. There's some
I
magic there.
might. But what I was going to say is, I think you were talking about that we haven't seen it win at nationals and force us to make that, hasn't forced the meta. Love at First Sight didn't win at nationals either, but it was so prevalent in the moment
Mhm.
with everything. I believe Jaden won in Iowa when Circus and Ephesian Widow and stuff was out, and I don't think he played that. I think he just played Post Exilics and won. So this isn't a quote unquote combo deck that is creating negative play experience, but it is a deck strategy and a way to build and craft decks that is creating negative play experience for a majority of. If you take away the top players and you separate them, and you're just left with the average player base, and you
Mhm.
make your decision for that player base, because you're going to find that the elite players are going to be elite no matter what, because they're going to adjust to the rules and things, and they'll be fine. But if you look at that average, would it benefit the average player base more to nip these 100-card decks right
Yeah.
now, just cut them out? Or would it benefit to allow them to continue to exist? I think
You got
for
me.
that select few, and that are, like, you take away the elite players and you just look at everybody else that's in that average pool, I think that having a strict 50-card singleton format would be a clean and welcome change to make things simplified for those players.
You got me. You got me. Good question, Maxwell.
So I guess maybe I did come around to where I think 50-card singleton.
There we go.
And then I've got here, how did you guys get your start in Redemption?
Yeah.
I've already answered this question. The reason I didn't put it on here, this is by Gamer Dad, Robin Derma. The reason that I did not put this on before when you asked is, I feel like if you go back to earlier episodes, you will find it mentioned multiple times how I got into the game. Me and Brad going into that Lifeway, buying Angel Wars cards, awful. I played Flood early on. I feel like this has all been answered for me, but I will let you answer here. So, how did you get your start with Redemption? Did you find the game on your own, or were you introduced to Redemption by someone? And then what was your first deck?
Mm-hmm. So, honestly, I feel like I've probably answered this before in one of my introduction podcasts.
Yeah,
but
probably. And that's
I'm totally good to answer it either.
we're gonna have to just tell Robin he's gonna have to go and find it in archives. But
no, I like answers. It was at my local Christian bookstore. It was at my book fair. Starter decks, women's and original packs. I think that's Warriors, women's and original packs were there. So that's what we had. Me and my friend, we played a lot. We didn't fully understand the rules, but honestly, I was looking for the rules when we could get them. This is before the internet, or at least before the internet was big. So we were mostly looking through our little printed out paper book and playing there. I remember my David card, the 10-3 David.
had no idea how to play right.
Exactly. Well, we had a decent idea, not a full idea. Like it's a complicated game, and we had some sort of idea on how to play. Like not,
and you couldn't just build a 50-card singleton deck back then.
Exactly. I remember, Burial. I remember the Lost Souls card. I remember the Fight by the Numbers heroes being super awesome back then. So I played for elementary school, and then there's no one to play with, so I just stopped playing. And the cards laid in my closet for 20 years, around 20 years.
Around 20 years, and then came off a hiatus.
Exactly. I was looking around. I found the boxes and wanted to see how much those cards are worth, and
and the answer was nothing.
The answer was nothing, but I was so surprised to see that the game was still running. Roy hollered at me, and he got me reintroduced to Redemption, so that was super cool. But yeah, I could speak on more of that, but I think that covers exactly what we wanted to say on that.
Okay, yeah, I think so. So this last question, I'll let you pose it here from
Yes.
Mitch Rob Stew, which is Mitch Stewart.
What are some cards from time to time that you feel are underplayed or underrated? And on the flip side, what are some cards from time to come that you feel are overplayed and overrated? And I'll start off with answering this. I cannot answer this because I do not know. Like
We're still getting our getting our bearings about us.
on this.
Yes.
I can tell you the cards I think are cool. I love the new Michael. Like I know that he's still fighting his old self because his old self's a boss too. But the new Michael is awesome. The new Daniel is awesome. I have these right here in front of me. I'll just look them up. But like it's really cool. I've been enjoying looking through the new cards. The other thing. So hear about this. Jeremiah the Weeper. I heard on Babooni's video, the ruling with Jeremiah the Weeper is he can use enhancements regardless of brigade.
Any enhancement. They don't have to change brigade.
So that's a
use
new
enhancement overrides the default of them having to match color. So he can play anything from your reserve.
This is a new ruling, right? Like a newish ruling on that, right? Like because I remember this card was revealed a while ago, but I don't remember us talking about him being able to use anything.
Yeah, I don't think we've talked about it, you and me personally, but
yeah.
Originally, when it was first spoiled, I jumped in our little brewing Discord and I started like, you can do this, you can do that, you can change his color here, you can do that.
Yeah.
And then later on it came out and Marcus shared that he actually doesn't have to change color. Because he can play anything because that overrides. And I think that came out around the time the set was released at Nationals. And so people immediately then started tinkering with the open world of Jerry. So now Jerry's world is wide open. Jerry can play anything from your reserve.
So like that is super cool. I've seen the Greeks here. I'm seeing Brown. I like Ahasuerus, the father. So there's a lot of cards I'm interested to try out. Abomination, Desolation, Daniel the Treasured. But I cannot tell you if cards are overrated or underrated because I don't have enough sense of the metagame right now to tell you what a card is overrated or underrated. All I can tell you is I'm excited to start trying these cards out.
I think I'm in that boat with you to where I have a pretty good feel for times to come and what's in there, but I haven't played enough to know what is truly valued appropriately within the metagame. I don't know what the metagame really is right now. Mm-hmm. I've seen obviously the stuff Jaden's put on his channel and things, but I would be taking a stab at guessing what the meta is right now before we get into tournaments and we start seeing what people are actually playing and things. So I think that this one's going to be hard for us to answer with any type of like authority or, like we just don't even know if our own words are bringing truth to this question. Mm-hmm. So maybe we'll file this one back and we'll try to revisit it at a later time.
Yeah.
But I will say that we could answer by saying, you gave a couple of cards that you like. I have a couple of cards that I like. I really like the Depraved being, various like Black Gold Outsiders. I really like. It's one of my favorite cards in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's in the plans for that to be part of Phase 3 because I don't even think the wording fits on cards, on the new card face and things, with all the lines that it has. So I think the Depraved is kind of a way to bring that style of card in to the next era of Redemption if there is a rotation moving forward. I think the 3 different ways which removes characters in different ways or whatever. One reserves, one's discard, and whatever. And I'm glad that Black got the discard because, I like the Black Brigade with Philistines and stuff, and the Greeks are pretty cool. But I like the 3 different Depraved cards. And what I really like is what we've seen it kind of transition and do this over the last couple of sets. I don't want to talk too negatively about Israel's rebellion because we've done that ad nauseum at this point. But I think over the last 3 sets, you can really see the push to get people and throw out a strong benefit to play in theme defensively. Like the Greeks, they work really well together. and push people toward their themes. You have the Persians, which is kind of, trying to reserve stuff and whatnot, and just has a lot of strong character value with Haman and all the stuff that goes with him, Haman's plot. You've got Daddy A, as you pointed out there. Pretty cool, going, getting, searching, and playing a card, which is great for setting up a Pride of Lions play early on, too. So you could do that. But I really, and the Babylonians, and I think if you look at Israel's inheritance, you saw the benefits: Moabite, the Edomites, and then the Canaanites. And those defenses, they kind of gave you benefits for playing in theme. But I feel like times to come defenses took it up another notch to where it's like, oh, now the value is really here to be in theme with these cards, especially when you compare them with Daniel offense and use the Ancient of Days, which makes you want to play the Daniel version of those type of characters that will allow you to, boost up the potential of Ancient of Days. So those are some of the cool things that I like about times to come now before I really jump into getting gameplay interaction. Like, I've built a few decks and goldfished them, but I haven't actually gotten in any real gameplay with them. So that's where I'll do that. And I'll say we'll file that one away and maybe bring it back out, halfway through tournament season or something after we've got a little bit of an idea there. So I think we are through what outline I have here. And obviously we've got the conversation coming up with Kurt about Paragon. But before you sign off for this episode, Jake, is there anything you want to leave with the people?
No, just excited to be back. Keep on praying for me that I'll be managing my time well and honoring God and how I balance work, life, and redemption. I definitely want to make sure that I'm being a godly husband and father, but I'm also excited to be a redemption player again. So I'm excited to be
back. And a
back.
co-host, right?
Exactly, and a co-host.
Yes.
So
yes, and you're in the game. You're in the game. So
EA Sports, Aggers in the game.
If he's in the game, he's in the game. So.
Oh no, Grew with the Wise. No, it doesn't work like that. No, it doesn't work.
Ager Sports, he's in the game. Some people are going to really appreciate that, and some people are not going to know anything about what we're talking about.
Oh
but
man,
that's the way it goes with things like this. But we'll have a brief word about our sponsor, and then we'll get you into the conversation with Kurt.
Let's go.
This episode of the Threshing Floor Podcast is brought to you by our friends at Your Turn Games. If you are in the market for singles or sealed product, you won't find a better selection anywhere else. They also feature some of the best custom products the game has to offer with their selection of pre-built challenger and contender decks, along with their rotation grab bags. Visit yourturngames.biz for all your redemption gaming needs. Now, back to the episode.
All right. We are sitting down with Mr. Kurt Hake, a famous last name in Redemption. So I think that's a perfect place to start. You want to tell people kind of your experience with the game and maybe why your last name is famous with the game?
Sure. Yeah, my experience with Redemption goes back longer than I can remember. My dad, Brian Hake, basically trained me from birth practically to play Redemption.
I like it.
Yeah. I mean, not quite from birth, because it was actually his first Father's Day. I'm the oldest kid. So it was like his first Father's Day that, my mom on my behalf, gave from me to my dad, his first Redemption cards.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's where it started for him. And, he immediately got into it and was, went to nationals, and his first nationals, he won type 2. But I got up against Chris Bainey in the finals. And then, after that became one of the first, judges and elders. And then he became the lead designer for a number of sets for a lot of years. So that's why the last name is known because of him. But then, for me, obviously, for early years, I wasn't even aware of most of that because, I was so young. But my dad put together Redemption Junior cards just to teach me the basics of the game way back when. It was I wish I still had these cards that he made. I don't know whatever happened. I mean, I should assume they were just like tossed eventually.
These weren't like select cards that were in the card pool. He made specific cards,
You know,
like new
he just
custom
made,
cards.
yeah, I mean, like, you know, he just printed them out on paper and put them in sleeves in front of something,
Oh,
you know.
okay.
And, you know, this is when I was probably like 3 years old or something. And it's like, there would be just like characters and enhancements. And like, I don't even know exactly how it all worked because it was like, I just had heroes and good enhancements. Like I didn't have evil characters or evil enhancements. He played those. And it wasn't like strength and toughness. It was just like one number. So it was basically just like basic reading, matching numbers, adding up, you know, basic numbers.
What age was this?
I want to say like 3 or 4 was when this was starting. Yeah.
Okay.
Because by the time I was like 5, I was already playing like in tournaments, and since I now I can't remember. I'm forgetting now. I think it was 2004 was my first tournament, which was when I would have been 6. So I was either 6 or 7 for my first nationals, which was in Minnesota. Yeah, that was a whichever one. I'm forgetting the year, but yeah, we could look it up on Covenant Games or whatever. It was like the record-breaking year with just multiple hundreds of people there. It was like, you know,
I think low. I want to say either like 213 or like 230 something is what I remember reading at as the record for nationals. So
yeah,
so you were at the big one, and that was your first one.
Yes, so it was. You can imagine as a little kid, that was totally overwhelming. And they didn't let me play Type A because I already had too many RNRS points from like stuff from tournaments here in California. So I was just tossed in with everybody else. But
how did you do?
I don't remember how I ended up doing. I mean, like I certainly wasn't close to winning or anything like that.
Right.
But I mean, I did win a number of games at least and had a good time. You know, is back then I was you know, pretty much just using my fight by the numbers deck as what I would do at the beginning. You know, that was good for a little kid because it meant like most of the abilities you could just ignore. It was basically I was just trained, you know, just look out for Holy of Holies. You know, like basically you have Destruction of Nehushtan and a couple of evil enhancements that can get rid of Holy of Holies if somebody plays that. And you know, and Astral Pole was like the other thing that I would have to look out for. And other than that, it was just use your big by the numbers characters and have all these like rainbow enhancements to play on them. And yeah, just
that's awesome.
Yeah, pretty simple for a little kid. But, yeah.
With your dad kind of making a custom format a little bit to get you started.
Yeah.
And doing that, maybe that it's almost in your DNA, maybe.
Yeah,
to
pretty
be
much
a designer. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah. You've now been creating cards. So you've got this new format, Paragon. That's the topic of the hour here. So what is the farthest back in your memory that where did the inception of the idea of Paragon start?
I think that it was just at nationals this past year.
Okay.
Because I mean, you got to understand that, you know, I mean, this was my first national since 2011, but it was like I had just barely gotten back into the game, you know, at nationals this past year. Let's see, because I guess it was my cousin Tucker, who goes by Mr. T on Discord.
Yep.
I'd been trying to get my dad and me back into the game for a little while, and so then
he seems like a persistent fellow.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Okay.
and I'm very glad he did. But it was just like, you know, with some personal things in life that don't need to get into, like things lined up that like, you know what, this would actually be a great time to get back into Redemption. So anyway, it was like near the end of 2024, like I think I got my dad like the KNL starters for his birthday or something. And then like we were just into it enough that like my cousin pushed us into participating in the Christmas Secret Santa exchange that year.
The Christmas card swap.
Yeah. So like
Yes.
I was just, so it was like, you know, just barely, you know, back into it for that. But it was still just like, oh, cool cards. I guess, well, yeah, we could put some decks together, occasionally play. But then we were like, he convinced me to go to nationals with him. And so then it was like, yes, it did. And so then it was like, well, if I'm going to nationals, I should probably like have a few tournaments here first. So we had 3 tournaments here in California before nationals. And I'm pretty sure the first one was just like in April or May. Because it was like we had one district in April or May, and then we had a state in June and a regionals like at the beginning of July. and that was it. And with the exception of Tim, who came down to join the tournament, like everyone who was coming were just like a small group of people from back in the day who hadn't played in years. So
Tim cleaned up.
yes, he did. Yeah, especially like type 1 or type 2, like completely undefeated, of course. I wasn't necessarily undefeated with like booster draft, but definitely the guy to beat. Anyway, so as you can imagine, Nationals is kind of being tossed into the deep end after being away for so long. It was like basically if it wasn't a deck that Tim had played, I hadn't ever played against it before. So it was kind of neat to just kind of get a fresh view all of a sudden of this, both reminding myself what Redemption is, but also seeing for the first time what it's become, like, the changes that have been in the, 14 years I had been away or something like that. And so it was there seeing everybody that, I was formulating thoughts about, okay, what's kind of missing? And, the big thing that was obviously missing to me was there's not like a multiplayer format that I really like. There's teams, but that's only for 4 people, and it's
teams.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
even though I love teams personally,
yeah.
I get it.
Right. And then in addition to that, it was, we're getting back into it for the first time, and we're looking at sets that were released while we were away that are like, wait, what is all this? It's like, star abilities and converting to Meek to do blah, blah, blah. And,
the arc
all sorts of new things.
POC to GOC,
Yes.
if you're coming back to the game,
yes.
Even though those sets are really cool.
Oh, they are. Yeah.
But the power level that they ramped up to,
yeah.
I can imagine coming from like 2011 era, like that's around the time the IJ starter decks came out.
Mm-hmm.
There's not even a reserve. And then you get, I can imagine, so I can sympathize with maybe the hurdles of coming back at that.
Right. Yeah. And the truth is, like, I mean, I agree with you. Like, I think those sets are really cool and I love them now. But I think that if it hadn't been for the big, like, streamlining of the game, like, with, post Gospel of Christ and and Roots and all that, like, I don't know if I would have been convinced to come back. I think it might have just been too intimidating. And now that I'm back, of course, I love and appreciate all those sets that came before. But like these more recent sets are just way more beginner friendly and returner friendly.
Yes.
Very
much more accessible to the average Joe.
Exactly. But anyway, so with all that context that, I'm trying to build up a group here in California again. And, there are some people from the past who have come, and it's been really great to reconnect with them. And, Tim has been, wonderful, and all that. But, the thought of trying to introduce the game to, like, high school and college kids at my church or something is like, it's the thought of them just jumping into one of our type 1 tournaments or something, with our group at the current state was just like, I mean, they've really got to want it. They've got to be the sort of person who's,
you need a competitive drive kit to really jump in to type 1.
And unless there are a bunch of people all trying it at once to kind of have a group of newbies, it's really intimidating for like just 1 or 2 people to join in and be the only newbies in a crowd of people with, who years of experience and a bunch of competitive cards. So in addition to saying, hey, there really ought to be a good multiplayer way to play, I was also thinking there really ought to be some sort of more casual way to play that's, people can just jump in, with a borrowed deck, maybe, but, and if it's also multiplayer, that's great because, it's a whole lot easier for some random person who walks up to join in on the game if you can just add another player to the game, So it was thinking like those are 2 big holes I saw from my perspective coming back. And I thought, you know what? I don't see any reason why these two holes couldn't be filled by one format, especially when I look at some of the major card games on the market today and some of their most popular formats are casual and multiplayer, like Commander. I've people have compared my format a lot to Commander. I mean, I've even compared it to Commander. People may be surprised to hear that I've never actually played Commander before. I've played one game of Magic in my life, and I don't know if it even really counted because we weren't even using like full legal decks. It was just like, some cards that we just like played a like small version of a game with. So, but I'm aware enough of it. I know.
I feel like that's how I am with Magic. There's so many references because we're in a card game hobby, and so there's a lot of like references to Magic. And I guess over the years I've picked up enough like through inference that like even though I don't have the hands-on experience with it, I kind of know a little bit about it. But as far as like Commander, the only thing I know about Commander is it's kind of more laid back and you build around some super character.
Exactly.
Basically. So
right.
That's as
and
far
those
as
two
it
things
goes
you
for.
said. Those two things you said about Commander are the two things that basically are in common with the Paragon format that I made. It's the idea that you build it around a character, like, and that affects like what you're allowed to put in your deck and what you'd want to put in your deck because it like has strategy implications, of course. And the idea that it's more laid back, casual multiplayer, or at least it's intended to be. Some people do play Commander pretty competitively now, but that was not the intent at the beginning. But in other ways, Paragon's very different than Commander. So it's certainly not just, Redemption Commander, what a copy, because some basic things are very different. Because for one thing, Commander decks are larger than regular Magic decks. And I didn't want to do that with Redemption. For one thing, there's already Type 2 for that. But also, like, Redemption is already limit 1 card per deck. And Redemption also slows down if you have 4 cards in your deck.
Well,
Because,
it's limit 1 card per deck unless you're one of these weirdos playing 100 cards.
Yeah.
So,
yes,
like Tim.
yes, that's true. But basically, like, if it's going to be multiplayer, I do not want the game to slow down. People need to draw into their Son of God, and not create these crazy board states. So I didn't want decks to be bigger. If anything, they were smaller. So that in this case, Paragon, the deck sizes are slightly smaller. They're 40 cards, but really, it's misleading. They're basically exactly the same size because you don't have Lost Souls in your own deck. So if you take out the 7 Lost Souls and the Hopper, that's only like a 2-card difference off of like a regular 50-card deck. And basically you draw through your deck just as quickly because, if some of your Lost Souls were like Prosperity or Shepherds or Grumbled or something, and basically your deck is the exact same size as a 50. So anyway, so it's not bigger like Commander. And there are also some other things that are different because, like, for example, in Commander and Magic, it's like it's one of the characters that would be in your deck is your Commander. And it's not like that with Paragon where it's like, oh, I have my special hero card that instead of starting in my deck starts off to the side and I can, play it at some points in the game. It's instead, it's just like some ongoing ability that you have, So
it just exists.
Right. And then, of course, there are other rule changes for Paragon that basically anything that was something that I saw as a problem with traditional multiplayer, that like this is a reason that multiplayer doesn't quite right or kind of breaks the basic game flow of Redemption. I tried to introduce some sort of rule adjustment that would fix that.
Do you have a ban list that includes Justin Alstead? Because that would fix multiplayer a little bit as well. So there's that.
No. Yeah.
So before we talk about maybe some of the deck building changes and maybe some of the rule set changes that slant to a better experience for multiplayer that you're going for, what was the... So you came up with an idea to do a format, but it became Paragon. So you settled on that name. Why was it that name and what led you to that?
Yeah, so I just chose the name to be whatever I was going to call the type of card that would be the equivalent of like your Commander in Magic, right? And I didn't want to call them commanders or leaders. Like initially I was like the first draft name I had for this was Leader, but I didn't really like that name because I wanted a name that really made sense for all of the different characters that I would be, using as leaders or whatever. And people like Ruth, for example, Ruth was not a leader. But certainly there are some leaders among them. People like David is a leader, But I wanted something that was also just more Redemption specific, something that really got across that so that's more thematic. Yeah. And Paragon just seemed right because, it's your Paragon represents some person who's inspiring your characters, the paragon of fill in the blank, paragon of faith, paragon of bravery, or anything else, or even paragon of prowess, like Benaiah,
Yeah, Benaiah. Yep.
Just inspiring people by how cool he is.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I just named the format after that. It's sort of like how, Commander is named after your commander.
I'm glad you didn't settle on leaders, because that feels a little, I don't know if this is the right word, but it feels a little generic.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right.
It feels like any card game could have something called leader, but you're not going to see Paragon. And maybe it's the fact that it's been so long since you first announced it or whatever in that article that now Paragon almost has its own identity within Redemption. So now you hear Paragon, you think Redemption. Maybe there's been enough time that's kind of cemented itself. But I just don't think that you would have gotten that, even if it lasted, 6 months down the road after you announced it or whatever. I don't think leader would have you hear the word leader, you think Redemption.
Right.
So I think,
no. Right.
I think you did a good job settling on the name.
Good. Oh, thanks.
So yeah, you got my approval on the name. So now that you've figured out a name, you've got kind of an idea. What was the idea, or what was your main goal and objective in selecting the card pool that you did, and settling out like how you approach the deck building part of it? Because I think deck building is it's almost like the one thing that I think really, like, if you don't like deck building, you're not going to play card games.
Right.
And it's going to be hard to find someone that likes card games but doesn't like deck building at all, like at some level. Now, there's phases to where some people barely dabble with it, and maybe they don't think they're good. And then you have the extreme cases where people, that's how they enjoy the game. So how did you try to encompass that as you figured out how to build decks?
Yeah, I think the way that it went is I started by saying, what needs to change for multiplayer to work and for it to be very approachable for new players. So the sets that I included had more to do with the new player part, mostly. And it was sort of like what we said, it's just coming in as a new person. I mean, as a new player or a returning player in my case, everything post Gospel of Christ was way simpler, way more streamlined, easy to understand. Even very, just very continuous, like visually, even it's very, well connected. It's its own, feels like its own very good block, So that just seemed like a good place to start. And it also solved a lot of problems, further down the road in development was okay, these lost souls are not going to be in everyone's own land of bondage. So it was what do I do with sites, for example? So it just problems like that I didn't even have to think about. And so, I think it was pretty early on that I knew that I was going to have it this way. And then it was sort of at that same time that it was, whatever restrictions I'm giving on the format, deck building wise, I want to replace it with something new and exciting and fresh for deck builders, which is where these Paragons came in with, it's not even just a special ability that it's providing, but it's also saying what brigades you can have and things like that, so that each Paragon should feel like a deck that you can only build in Paragon, even with all the restrictions put on. A special ability should give you something that makes this feel very unique and oh, this is so fun to play. I couldn't pull something off like this in a regular type 1 game, for example.
With that in mind, how you built it to simplify and you've got all of your goals of this is what you want the format to be. The one advantage you have over probably most people listening is you've actually played some Paragon games. And I know it's something that, I'm the first one to say I think it's a cool format. I like the idea of us having something that's casual and multiplayer and all of the possible pros of it, but I have no verified experience with it. I haven't played a game. And so eventually that's going to change. I can go ahead and make that promise to you. I'll at least give it a fair shake. But when you play the games, what is the reality versus your, idea of what you wanted to happen? Does it actually play out like that? And just take us through kind of what it feels like to play a Paragon game.
Sure. Yeah, so far I've been pretty pleased with how it's gone. And of course, I've only played games that I've been part of, so that's not obviously like a super objective and good neutral evaluation of the format.
Yeah.
Mostly it's been people borrowing decks from me, so the decks have all been felt by the same guy. So again, that's not like a perfect testing. But I will say some things that have been very good signs. It's very fun. Like, it's every time we've played, everyone at the table has enjoyed it, whether they're winning or losing. We've had lots of fun multiplayer moments that you just don't get otherwise. Just really crazy things like, people playing now I'm forgetting, like, what's the ultra rare split good and evil dominant from Israel's Rebellion? I'm forgetting what it
is. It Israel's Rebellion?
I think Israel's Rebellion is the only evil one, because there are two ultra rares dominants in that set. There's one that's just evil, and I'm pretty sure that's Israel's Rebellion.
40 years, and it's 40 years. I think.
Okay, 40 years. Yes. So
Yeah,
it's like,
it's brown, or no, it's made to work with the brown wilderness stuff and also the white wilderness stuff from the set.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So like in one of our games recently, someone played that like late game and just underdecked tons of characters and no one saw it coming, things like that. Or
you get a lot more impact when you have 5 players at the table too.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. You take some things for granted, like some of these roots cards, like suddenly become incredible. Like, it feels so good. Like, I played a Furnace of God's Wrath and discarded 3 evil characters and 3 artifacts, and it just felt great. It's like,
yeah,
there's lots of little things like that. Yeah, the restrictions on the format, kind of breed some creativity and deck building, but they also make some of like the smaller things you pull off feel like bigger deals, if that makes sense. It's like, oh, even with these restrictions, like I just pulled off this huge band, or, or you're using cards that you wouldn't normally use, and you can still pull off some cool things. Like this last game we played, I had drawn a bunch of cards. I had a fistful of negate enhancements, but they were only things that negated enhancements. And I went into battle with like some version of Moses, and was surprise blocked by I think it's the Dreaming Pharaoh, the one that's immune to all Old Testament characters.
Oh, yep.
Or protected from. Sorry, wow, that's my my old school lingo leaking through there. Yeah, and then I realized, oh, I have the roots enhancement that's CBN if used by Moses, and it's part of why I had Moses in the deck, to interrupt and ban to 3 Old Testament guys. And that wouldn't normally help, but one of the Old Testament guys I had was Jephthah from the starter deck, and so I was able to like interrupt, ban to Jephthah, discard the Pharaoh. Things like that. People aren't doing that in Type 1, but in this format, the things like that feel really special. Yeah, so that's been good. It's been very fun, and also it has worked pretty well with new players. Was one brand new player that tried it. He had only before his first game of Paragon, he had only ever used the starter decks. He had played just 2 games with the KLNL starter decks, nothing else. And he jumped into Paragon with a borrowed deck and did great. I mean, for a while we all thought he was going to win, but then we kind of ganged up on him. We kind of ganged up on him enough that that someone else snuck and beat him. So and again, that's limited
That's
sampling,
the old school
obviously,
welcome to
but
multiplayer.
Oh no,
you
exactly.
think you're going to win, but wait a minute, the whole table turns on you.
Right. And it's very intentional that like there's not nearly as much ganging up as there would have been back in the day. Partially because like the super unhealthy ways that you could gang up have been changed with like the way that attacking and blocking works and the way that Lost Souls work. And also there are just fewer cards in the format that are really brutal that way. I mean, because like, for example, back in the day, Falling Away. If you were the one player who hadn't drawn Guardian of Your Souls yet, then you got every Fallen Away played against you, which is just terrible. Yeah. I mean, it was just the case. It was like in multiplayer, Guardian of Your Souls was a more important card than Son of God. Because you wanted to be the first player to get Guardian of Your Souls.
1, potentially
yeah, but Guardian of Your Souls could 2 or 3, depending on how many
yeah.
players are in the game. You know how many games of Type 2 multiplayer
You're
You
sitting
know,
there
it's
with 4 souls, and you don't have your guardian of your souls, and everyone just layers them on you.
yeah, yeah,
Oh man, I'm glad
yeah,
I came after that.
yes, yeah. I type 2 multiplayer, especially, like, I don't even know how it lasted as long as it did, because I mean, you could have 4 or 5 players, and you're going to 7. That already takes long enough. But this is also back in the day when the rescuer's choice worked differently back then. It was you chose, like, when you started the rescue attempt. So if something happened to that one lost soul, just the rescue attempt failed. So burial was an auto block in type 2. Son of God, you could rescue your own souls back then. Or in multiplayer, even after that was changed in multiplayer, you could still, like, as a third party in the battle, could still, rescue, So if you can imagine, if you're ahead, or if you're playing against 3 people all related to each other, like I often did, you can imagine you get you get
It
every
gets
bit,
chippy. It gets a
like
little chippy.
you get three jump blocks from Burial, 3 jump blocks from Son of God, up to 3 copies of Falling Away until you draw your Guardian of your Souls, So anyway, there's nothing like that now. It's just the handful of dominants that exist in the format can just kind of be used to jump in, in some places. But even, it's mostly just Christian Martyr, maybe Forces Arise with A-Bomb if you're using some of the cards from Times to Come. Or, you might have to face off against, like, a Strife, for example, or a Vain Philosophy. There have been a number of people, like, thinking they're about to win, and people jump in with Vain Philosophy and underdeck
Vain
their Son of
Philosophy
God.
is a sneaky good card.
It is. In 2-player, it's great for, like, hand knowledge, but in multiplayer, it's often just like, people ask if they can play a dominant, and people don't expect what they're about to do.
And I think the only reason that it doesn't see, like, actual play is the fact of the way the mechanics work of, okay, it's an evil dominant. I'm playing it generally when they're going because I want to stop them from playing something they maybe just searched for.
Sure.
But they can always play a dominant first. So if they search for, like, Resurrection or something, and you want to get rid of it, you can ask for domination. They're just going to play their dominant first, and then it snowballed after that. So it's kind of ineffective in those situations, and I think that's why it doesn't see play. But when I first got into the game and I got a copy of, like, the Legacy Rare version, that was a better presentation than the skinny card that wouldn't fit in the sleeve the right way. Dude, I thought I made it. I was like, okay, now I have this really cool card, and it quickly was outclassed by other things that because when you first come to the game, you're in this, like, learning curve of you get a card and you think it's really good, and then you play somebody that you haven't played before, and they play a card that you've never seen before, and you're like, oh, now I got to get that one. And eventually you realize that some of the cards you thought were strong are, they're not weighted as strong as some of the other cards available, and so you end up moving to the stronger cards. But Vain Philosophy, I'm telling you, I thought I made it when I got that Legacy Rare version, and it wasn't the ugly little skinny card. I couldn't stand before rotation every now and then you might still throw in something from the 10s where the card size was different. When they came out with Foreign Wives on the new card face, and card size, fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I'm still filling my decks with, like, Angel of the Lords and Christian Martyrs that are skinny, because, like, I don't have, I missed the boat for most of those promos or things like that, but
They work the same.
Yeah.
It's just, and if you put them in sleeves, and now you can do stuff like what Justin's doing and triple sleeve your Brown Tower 100 card deck. You never feel the card itself, so you don't know whether they're skinnier than the rest or not.
Of course, right. Yeah.
So Paragon is, and for a little bit more information, there's a lot of information on Land of Redemption, both in article form. You've shared decks. You have one that's spotlighting the lost souls. So that's kind of where I want to pivot to now, because your approach to lost souls is different. You mentioned it a little bit here in passing, but I'd like to focus in and zero in on kind of the approach you took to souls, because it's unique. You wanted them to be both testaments, and they're separate from the main deck and all of that. So what all went into all of those decisions and how that came about?
Yeah, pretty early on, I knew that something drastic had to change with the way that attacking and defending and Lost Souls worked, because I saw that as the number one issue with traditional multiplayer, was just the idea that, Soul Drop could be brutal because you could, wait for 3 or 4 turns between yours and there's nothing even available to rescue on your turn. And half the time it was because someone was, the one player who didn't have enough defense to block, everyone just went after that player and rescued all the
Poor
lost souls.
player.
And then by the time that your turn came around, there was nothing there for you to rescue anymore, right? Or sometimes people would intentionally give away free souls. So there'd be nothing left for the player who they think is going to win, and not to mention just the fact that the whole lost soul economy, like all of the weirdness there, is also one of the reasons that the whole good and evil split in your deck didn't really work right either, because basically you wanted everyone to attack you, not only for a chance to include whatever evil characters you happened to include in your deck, if any, but because if people attacked you, then you'd have more likely to actually have something to rescue on your turn, right? If people are attacking you, they're not making all the other lost souls run out. So it was this weird thing where you're incentivized not to include defense, and people are giving away free souls, and you have this super brutal soul drought that you could just go, it could take like 20 minutes between your turns and you don't even get to rescue on your turn. It's just, I knew that like that whole thing fundamentally had to change. So I was just thinking about like, what are ways that I could fix this? And basically it was like, I knew that lost souls had to be like, there had to be guaranteed that at the start of your turn, unless someone plays something like Death of Unrighteous, for example, like there had to be a soul for you to rescue. And the only way that it seemed that could work right would be if there was some separate stack of lost souls that everyone was rescuing from. And then a natural outgrowth of that was, that also kind of solves the problem of, the good and evil and, being incentivized not to run defense, is if I kind of use the team's rules for how attacking works, where like the opponent to your left has the first opportunity to block and they could pass it to your other opponent. If I kind of use the similar rules for that, where, you just push a hero into battle to rescue the lost souls in the shared land of bondage, then, the player on your left has the first opportunity to block if they want. That way, everyone always has first dibs at a block. So you're never going to sit the whole game waiting for someone to attack you and they never do. You just have all of your evil cards in your deck going to waste, So that seemed to solve a lot of problems. Now, initially, I was just thinking I would make a list of lost souls, like sort of like, how people would make a list of a cube, for example, like, hey, put this cube together and, play this redemption cube. I was thinking I'll make a list of however many lost souls in the game that would be like, to make your lost soul deck, put these lost souls in it. And I would have put like a certain number of meek souls and, whatever other abilities. But I very quickly was like, I don't really like this very much, because for one thing, it was like anything that cared about having Old Testament lost souls or cared about New Testament lost souls just really didn't work well, because you weren't getting to choose what lost souls went into it. And also it was a surprising few number of lost soul abilities really made sense, like would have even been very fun for everyone to share at the same time. It was just kind of weird. Not to mention the fact that if people didn't actually own all those lost souls, they couldn't build it. And lost souls are some of the things that, like, if anybody's putting more than one deck together, they want a copy of certain lost souls, like in every deck they're building. And so anyway, like I was just initially like grappling this because actually the lost souls and like what exactly was going to be in the lost soul deck was actually one of the later things, because that wasn't like the first exciting fun thing to work on. The first exciting fun thing to work on was to like, oh, these paragons, they're going to be so fun to design, right? So then I was just kind of, falling back on, okay, what are this lost soul deck going to be like? And it was actually Tim who suggested, because he was the first person that I gave any of this to, is like, hey, I'm working on this, what do you think? And I'm pretty sure it was him who suggested, you're making Paragon, like these things custom, like why couldn't you just make your own lost souls to do the same? And I was like, oh yeah, I could totally do that. that would just be so much better, because I could make them exactly the way that would be good for the format.
In your DNA, and you could design cards from scratch. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, so then I could make it exactly how I wanted. So for one thing, I knew, well, hey, right away, like I could just make all of them both Old Testament and New Testaments, that all those abilities just always work, right? And another thing that is I knew early on I wanted some real incentive to try to block if you had like if you had a reasonable shot at blocking successfully, I wanted you to try, right? beyond just like, blocking with an evil character that just gets you some value to draw cards or search your deck for a card or something like that. I wanted you to actually try to stop for some other personal gain other than just stopping your opponent. Because too often in multiplayer, it was just like, as long as this player isn't about to win, I don't really care what happens on their turn. I just want to guarantee my next rescue, So I wanted there to be some sort of extra incentive. So I was like thinking, is there some game rule that like if you successfully block, you get to like, draw a card or draw 2 cards or, something like just some extra game rule I could add. And when Tim suggested make your own Lost Souls, I thought, oh, well, that solves it right there. I could just put whatever the reward is going to be on the Lost Souls themselves. So now if you look at the deck of Lost Souls, there are 21 of them because basically if you're going to play with a 5th player, you need to have at least 21 in case, you're sitting at a table where all 5 players have 4 Lost Souls and no one's captured anybody and no one's generated any Lost Soul tokens. Like there needs to be a 21st Lost Soul so someone can get their 5th.
I appreciated when I read that article, the literal math analysis of that. Imagine everybody's 5 times 4, that's 20. You need number 21.
Yeah. Well, I was a math major, so I know 21 is it.
That makes sense. I was not a math major, so I'm glad you didn't go past 21. I might not have been able to count that high.
Yeah. Anyway, so basically I knew, okay, I want at least 21, because basically 5 has been the traditional max for multiplayer games because once you have a 6th player, you could just split it into 2 3-player games, And Paragon, you can actually play 2 players if you want to. Some of the Paragons are a little more made for multiplayer, but Tim and I have played several games, just 2 players, and it's a lot of fun. Anyway, so yeah, I knew I needed 21, and I just decided make them all different. And if you look at them, I've given a different Lost Soul reward to each one. And basically, if you rescue the Lost Soul, you get the reward. And there's rescuer's choice in the format, just like in Type 2. So you get to pick the reward. And usually you'll be picking from 3, because basically if there are fewer than 3, it'll refill to 3. So you'll have at least 3 to choose from. You rescue it, you get the reward. And if you successfully block, then you just get to pick the reward on any one Lost Soul in play. So that means that if you can block, you really want to, because as long as you succeed, like you want to just throw someone in there and lose, because that would be a waste of your cards. But if you can actually block, or you think you can, you should try, because you'll get your choice of a bunch of different rewards on the table, which can really help you. So often the people who have the best starts in Paragon are people who actually, get some good defense at the beginning and get multiple stops early and, get some good rewards. Draw some extra cards or search for some things or whatever other utility ability there is. So anyway, yeah, I've been pretty pleased how it's worked so far. It seemed to be what I hoped to solve the Lost Soul problems.
Okay, so again, a lot of this information is out there in other forums and other mediums. So you've got some deck building with Baboony Tim. I think Jaden's got plans to feature it at some point on his channel. We've got the articles. Let me ask you this, because I don't know where I saw it, and it might just be from that article with the Lost Souls, but I remember seeing on the bottom of some cards, it said Season 0. Okay, so now I want to ask about what the future might look like for this format. So I want to ask that in kind of a twofold question of what does the future look like as far as further development of the format itself, and then what is your long-term goal of the format? Do you hope that one day it becomes an official format and maybe has support with Cactus? What is your long-term goal, and then also what's the the next steps of development of the format?
Yeah, so the Season 0 thing does kind of imply sort of my plans at this point, or at least my plans at that point when I put that on, is basically I saw that basically up through nationals and or like the release of whatever the next set is and when, I saw this as the kind of, you could almost call it the beta period, for Paragon,
Sure,
where
yeah.
Hopefully more and more people try it. I get some feedback. I know that like some of these Paragon designs are not like future proof, like they will be totally unbalanced once certain cards are printed, more things are added to the format. So it was like basically a time to, hey, there's a bunch of Paragons to try. Let's try them. Let's see if this format works. So far, it seems like it does pretty well. And then basically Something that I definitely plan to do, no matter where this format goes in the future, is like when a new set is released, and at this point I'd hope to do this whenever another set in the future comes out, and so on, is revise the list of Paragons that there are. Whether it's ideally most of them could stay the same, but tweak some that maybe for balancing reasons need to be adjusted, add some new ones for new themes that are introduced or new characters who are back in the format. Just kind of add more and more options over time, so there are just tons and tons of Paragons to choose from. So, every deck is very unique. And then ideally it was basically like, once there's been enough people trying it and testing it and giving any feedback, I was just imagining that like the Paragons could be marked with what season they're in. Just basically like if some major balancing change needs to be made to like Peter, for example, I don't know.
So you can rotate them out.
Then like you could have like a season 1 Peter so that people can keep track of, the reason that Peter does something different is because you have like the one from season 0 or whatever. Anyway, I'm not certain that's how it's all going to work now. Like, I don't know if cards from, well, there's certain things I don't want to quite reveal yet. I will just say that,
we're good on the podcast for pulling out new information. So
yeah,
if share it to your
depending
heart's
on
content.
how many days this takes to be, edited and posted online and everything, like it's possible that certain things will already be announced, but there are like at least 3 pretty big deal things coming about Paragon in the next couple weeks, I think. So
okay, that's exciting.
Yeah,
I'm glad the podcast feels like we're in the know, or at least somehow, because you're on before those big things happen, instead of us trying to catch up afterwards. So I'm glad I reached out to you before, so we kind of have it. We look like we're in the know a little bit.
Yeah, I'll just say that like I could give a hint, because they're like basically three big announcements or things that are coming soon or announced for the future. Like one thing that should make it a lot easier for people to start playing physically soon, and something else coming that should hopefully allow people to play it digitally potentially. And also some really exciting things for people who would be playing the side event at Nationals. So, it's like some 3 big things. Yeah.
I'm excited about the Nationals part of it. We were really hoping, and I don't know where that's going to land, but we were doing our due diligence to try to push for like an official side promo to kind of get a little bit more incentive for people to want to play the side events and things at Nationals. It's really hard to do though with, the time constraints of Nationals. So I'm hoping, carving out how you have it set up for Thursday evening or whatever after, I'm really hoping that we get to see a lot of data collection there, data mining.
Yes,
so to speak.
That would be great. Yeah.
Kind of like when they released at Nationals, I believe it was 2022, they released like a beta version of the starter decks before they went to their final version and got printed, so that they could test and feedback or whatever. And I think kind of incentivizing people there. That's what from the outside, I'm hoping that gives us a lot of data to go on.
Yes. Yeah. I would love it. I mean, I'm definitely like, whenever we do signups or whatever, like I'm going to ask people to, like, when they sign up, to say what Paragon they're playing. I won't necessarily make that public I wouldn't make that like public information, like, oh, so-and-so is going to play, Benaya or whoever. But maybe like in the initial matchups, I'll try not to have like people playing the same Paragon in the same game in the initial matchups or something. But then also like, I'll just want the numbers of which Paragons were chosen and like, did they win? Or, can it get some more feedback there.
Put that math degree to work, kind of crunch the numbers.
Yeah, I will say, like, I've never hosted a multiplayer tournament before, and I do not know how all the matching works there. So,
Good thing is it's unofficial, so you can kind of make it up as you go, and it's okay.
Well, yeah, and it's also pretty casual. Like, and depending on how many people participate, we're not necessarily going to play however many rounds it takes to like have one winner necessarily. I mean, people are going to be tired after a full day of booster draft and Tide 2 or whatever. So if it's just like 2 or 3 rounds that we played for just fun and see if you can maybe win both of your games or something, like, if that's all that is, that's great, because I don't want to just make this first like big get together playing Paragon to betray the initial goal of this being a nice casual
being
format.
Casual,
like,
yes.
I don't want people to show up and be try hard and like try to break it, necessarily. I mean, if someone comes up with a deck that's kind of broken, I mean, this blame mostly falls on me for, not. so I'm not
I'm
blaming
glad you're
anyone.
accepting blame
yes,
now.
I am. If you come up with something broken, I will not blame you. If there's some weirdness with like dominant initiative in a multiplayer game, like I hope people just have grace. Like I have not ironed out like all of the weirdness with like with what would go there. Like for some of that stuff, I tried to make some of the rules as similar as possible to teams, just to hopefully have some precedent in official rules. But anyway, all that to say, like I'm hoping that a lot of people come and you will have fun. And I hope that people their fun is their goal primarily for this format, because that's what this format is about. Like, don't get me wrong. There's, you'll feel plenty competitive in your games. You want to win, and there's nothing wrong with being competitive. But the goal for this format especially is to kind of recapture the feeling of just a group getting together, all playing one game together, and just having these fun multiplayer moments that you really can't get otherwise. With you pull off these things that just feel so great because they're either multiplied by the number of opponents, or you're using cards from different brigades that you normally wouldn't put in the same deck together, but because you kind of have to in this format, you do these clever things that or
you're overcoming the restrictions of the format.
Yeah, exactly. And what's neat is the restrictions make certain things feel really good, like things that can use enhancements regardless of brigade actually feel really strong, because you have to have some things that are off brigade. The double whammy of the deck restrictions and then just the natural implications of having multiple opponents really changes a lot of cards. If it's I'm sure most people listening have never built a Paragon deck before, but if you get into it, you have to train yourself. Don't just fall into the same deck building patterns you always have done. Like, you really have to look at these cards with fresh eyes, both paying attention to what's in the format and how different they are in Paragon, but also the cards that aren't in the format that you don't have to worry about anymore. So it's a very different animal than, building for type 1.
I'm excited to kind of put it together and try to build my own deck. So you answered pretty well kind of the immediate thing and what you're expecting to get out of right now. But what about that long term?
Yes.
Like, are you shooting for it to be an official category and type, supported by Cactus directly?
Yeah. I mean, I'd love that to happen eventually. Yeah. I will not be shocked or crushed if that never happens, but I would be open to that. I'd love for this to catch on, and if it catches on, I am not going to be possessive of it, that it's my thing and all of the rules have to be exactly what I say and they're going to be my Paragon designs that are used. And, it's like, no, I'd love for this to be, either taken over by the community or by Cactus eventually. Like that would be great. So yeah, I'm totally open to that. I'd love that to happen. But, if that doesn't happen, especially if that doesn't happen in the short term, I'm happy to continue to support this. Especially the more feedback that I get, the more input I get, I feel like once I get the next set in my hands, with Roots 2 especially, with as well, like it's going to be a lot of new cards for this format.
Yeah. A lot of new work for you.
Yes, exactly. So there's going to be a lot. Like, I already have in the back of my head, like some characters that I know I want to become Paragons, and like maybe have some idea of what they'll be. It's like just some of the bigger names from the Bible that aren't in it. Because for this initial set of Paragons, I only included characters who actually have a hero card that's legal in the format. I didn't have to do it that way, but I just decided to. So some of them that I'm not as excited about, like their abilities just maybe aren't the most fun, and they're more of an obscure character that didn't really need one. I just kind of put them in there because they were an option and just fill in whatever brigades. Like some of them I may just kind of say, no, let's not have that really on the list of Paragons anymore. Certainly some of them, like I'm anticipating, are going to need to change. I think I mentioned Peter earlier. He is one who will need to change once there are more New Testament cards in the format. So I think he's like, your gospel characters can't be prevented and they can use any New Testament enhancements. Like, that's ridiculously insanely strong if you have all these sets. But the reason that he is that strong is because right now the only New Testament cards that are available are
because
like
GOC is not included.
Right, exactly.
He would
It's
be
like
broken.
oh, of course, completely right. So the idea, but it's like right now you're using like INJ. If you're playing New Testament stuff, it's like you're using INJ cards and whatever little bit of New Testament was in Roots. Like that's pretty much it, right? So, so that's why it needed to be strong if, to have a New Testament option in the format, So, things like that will obviously have to be changed. But a good number of these, I don't anticipate changing. Like, for example, like my favorite Benaiah, like he's my favorite Paragon design, and yeah, he's not changing. He's got the brigades he should have and the ability he should have. Just so much fun. Like so many people, like I recommend if you have no idea like what Paragon you want to try first, just try to build a Benaiah deck and play it, and you will have fun. You will have fun because you just put your favorite warriors and your favorite weapons in the deck. And you just go wild because you don't care about brigades, and you have all the horses and whatever to draw cards, and it's quite strong and quite fun.
Along the lines of kind of you mentioning that you wouldn't be possessive of it or whatnot.
Yeah.
And potentially for Cactus to have the option if they wanted to take it and run with it.
Uh-huh.
I'm curious, have you had much feedback from the Elder team about the format?
No, pretty much none. Like there's like been one or two like comments, but not or messages, but not like no serious conversation with any of the Elders. No.
Okay, so this is as it stands, and that's not a knock on the Elders.
Oh no, not at all. Right. And it's not like I've reached out directly to any of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they obviously got Roots too and the fundraiser stuff, but it's kind of cool while that's happening simultaneously that what we have so far for, all the positives of it and, potentially with more feedback, maybe some things to work on or whatever might come out. But as of right now, it's been around for at least 4 months or so.
Yeah, I think it was sometime in November that I first posted it online. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so right now it's a completely fan-made and community-driven project. And I'm just curious, and I think I mentioned this at some point. I'd be curious to know, like, what is the level of traction that a fan-made format might need to get before there's any potential for it to even just be like an option at like a local tournament or whatnot. Because I think that would be the coolest first step is somehow including it at lower level tournaments and whatnot with some kind of official, you can still get your promo card from Cactus and potentially whoever wins first getting some packs or whatnot. So I'm hopeful that at some point I will see in my time with Redemption, I'll see something that is fan-made category that will progress to an official category. Because I do really think whether or not it's this or something that feels kind of like the void that you're trying to answer with this format. I think Nationals overall, I feel like we need more ways to interact with the game and play so that people, I feel like losing multiplayer was probably the right thing to do as far as applied, it's taking away, it's almost become a distraction at Nationals to have those whatever formats kind of just thrown in, and there wasn't a lot of players playing them or whatnot. But I think the community overall would probably benefit from having different variety of, and we talk about Nationals going longer and things. Well, you're also pushing people into the same, what is it, like 4 basically official categories or whatever. You've got type 1, type 2, booster sealed. Oh, it's 5 if you count teams. But 5 categories, and so each one of those pulls a large crowd, and the more diverse ways you can interact with the game in an official capacity, you can start thinning those numbers out a little bit, cutting a round or 2 off, kind of make Nationals feel more like it's got a little bit more variety of how to interact with the game. So I really want to see that at some point in my time with Redemption, just to see the story arc of it started here and it ended here. And I know people that were around back in the day, got to see that with different formats becoming official, like teams and the multiplayer stuff. So I hope that whether, I guess I don't want to project my desire to see something like that onto your project, but it would be really cool to see this be that. And I'm excited about it at Nationals. I don't know if I'll get a chance, obviously with helping host and things. I don't know what it will look like from my side, but it'd be cool to at least observe the tournament as it's happening. So what is, if you had just a minute or two here to try to sell Paragon to someone that maybe they've listened, they think, it's just too hard to jump into the deck building because it's so different. You have to print these cards off. You have to, have your paper souls in front of your souls, kind of like you said your dad did with cards he made for you.
Yeah.
What would you do to try to sell someone to jump over those hurdles and actually get to where they get to experience the Paragon format?
Well, I would say that you're missing a big piece of redemption that like I hadn't felt in a long time and was totally recaptured this feeling when we were playing, is the feeling of just a group all playing one game together and just the laughter that ensues when people pull off crazy multiplayer moments that you just don't get in like a competitive one-on-one games. And in terms of those initial hurdles, the deck building like is actually, I know it's very different. And like, if you want to build a good deck, like you're going to have to, you'll discover and learn some things that are very different about the format. But if you use Tim's deck builder, it's really easy. He's got it so that it enforces all the rules for you. He has all the resources there. It makes it very quick and easy. You can look at some of the decks that have been posted for inspiration. There may be other ways to get some decks in the near future. And so that's, that will very quickly just become fun. And you already have the cards. If you have if you have many rotation cards at all, then you have the cards for this, because the backbone of most decks are starter decks and roots cards, with just depending on what theme you're playing, some cards from IR or II or Times to Come. And, I know that playing with the paper souls isn't ideal, but you only have to print them out once, and only one person in your group does, and your whole group can use those. And maybe someday, you won't have to use paper souls. That's a possibility too, maybe.
You gave
maybe,
hints earlier. Maybe that's one of the cool things.
So yeah, I'll just say that it's easier than you think. Take advantage of the resources that are there, especially with Winnie Jim's deck builder. And just, if your whole group isn't doing it, then just you yourself put like 3 decks together. It's cards that you own, but a lot of them are cards that you aren't necessarily putting in your competitive decks. If you've played Booster Draft enough times, you have enough draft to put together some good decks. And just rediscover what it's like to play Redemption multiplayer without all the bad parts. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Without the bad parts. I like that. So let me ask you this. And one thing that I'm excited to try whenever I have time to kind of put a couple of decks together is maybe, off after our next like local or district tournament with the local group here, maybe, hey, you guys want to play this and have those decks prepared. Kind of like, I'm sure you've got a couple in your arsenal that you carry around anytime you're at a redemption anything now. And you mentioned kind of a little bit about this with having that new player play for the first time after the starter decks or whatnot. So I'm really intrigued by like the potential of it being a tool for helping teach some of the mechanics of redemption. Yeah. Even though it's multiplayer, I mean, you can still get some interactions that you can take into individual play in type 1 or whatnot, or booster sealed and things. Yeah. So a lot of it will be cross-pollination, maybe, so to speak.
Yeah. And actually, and if I could jump in, I'd actually say that like it being multiplayer, even though it's different from what you're like necessarily training the new players for, it actually is very helpful for new players because there is a bit of table talk. I mean, this is very casual, so like some table talk is definitely encouraged. Like, oh, you should block with that character because X, Y, and Z. Or, there's all sorts of people giving each other advice or trying to convince each other to do things and politicking. So that actually makes it very helpful for new players because it's not like you're playing against the new player and you're their opponent, and you make them feel lame if you go easy on them, or or giving them too much advice. Multiplayer actually makes it better. And also, one thing that was neat to observe with this new player is that he borrowed my Phineas deck, Phineas, son of Eleazar, and it was interesting to see how his Paragon ability also immediately gave him a lot of information of what his strategy was and sort of some of the things he was trying to accomplish in the game. He saw right there that he gets to draw a card every time he banishes an artifact or he discards an evil character. So he just he sees a card in his hand. This could do one of those things, and he would just try to make it happen so that would happen. It was
that is pretty cool.
Yeah, so it was because I didn't even think about how that could help a new player. The fact that they have a starting card that just gives them big hints about, hey, this is this deck's strategy. Whoever built this deck to go along with this ability here. And it gave him so much, he gave him instant context for his handful of cards that he had never seen before, because he's only ever used starter decks, and he's seeing, all sorts of crazy things with Edomites and, whatever else. Yeah, and he did great because he had the context given by his Paragon, and there was, some good back and forth chatter between everybody, that happens in a multiplayer game. I was, even as much as I tried to make this work well for new players, I was even surprised myself how well it worked.
I think that's one of the biggest appeals for me, and it's kind of ironic timing to be talking about this a little bit, but we just recently did that spoiler. Gabe was asking people about their favorite episode of the podcast, and I ended up going back and looking at some of the ones people were calling out to kind of, I guess, relive the memories of recording those episodes. And there's so many topics there. I told Jake when we recorded the main part of this episode last night, here we break down the fourth wall, so we just tell people what's going on. But last night we recorded the bulk of it apart from this conversation here about Paragon. But one of the things I told him was, if we ever, need a topic of what to do, there's so many cool things that now that the game has changed so much in the time since the podcast came out, we could revisit, playgroup development or trying to start a playgroup, and using Paragon as potentially a tool for that is kind of a really intriguing thing, especially considering the casual nature. Because one of the things when you're trying to teach a new player, there's one of two approaches you take. You take new player, and you have them play each other, and then you try to help both of them so that they each get to see the interactions. Or you as an established player play with them, and then if you're not just trying to mail it in, you just usually beat them pretty handily, right? So you're not saying that they're going to win with Paragon, but they can be part of the game. But then instead of them having to be involved in everything, they can sit and observe for, a player's turn or two, or maybe someone else is blocking, someone's rescuing. They get to see it, and then, oh, now it's my turn and I can do that. And then it's almost like in my mind, I feel like maybe they get a moment to decompress after they've done their interaction and they've taken their turn or they've blocked, and they get to see other people do it to see and reinforce, did I do it right? Or how did they handle those interactions? And almost, it feels like a natural way to show the game. And
100%.
We do not have that. So Paragon definitely has the chance to fill that void for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Because when we played this game, it was after a tournament. And this guy, he came to the tournament, but he couldn't come for the whole time. So he just kind of came near the end of our last event, which that day happened to be Type 1. And so he, as a player who had only ever played with starter decks a couple times, he just sat and observed some Type 1 games, and he was very overwhelmed. There's I have no idea what's going on. As you can imagine, he looked at I think he watched he playing against Tim. Tim at least had a 100-card deck. I may have even been using one that day. I forget, but he was just
oh, they got you too.
Listen. I will say right now, I'm not going to play one at Nationals because I'm not going to know my deck well enough, and I get so tired by the end of a long day at Nationals. I'm not, I want a small deck. I don't want to lose my brains by the end.
Yeah, I got
but
you.
no, but yeah, I played a few just like experimentally, just see what things open up when I can use 2 copies of certain cards. Yeah. So I do occasionally. So anyway, whatever the case that game was, I forget exactly what decks we were using. Yeah, but this new guy was watching. Yeah, he was just completely overwhelmed. He was just trying to understand what he could. But then we're like, okay, hey, do you want to play this multiplayer format with us? And yeah, he just jumped in with a deck he had never used, with the vast majority of cards he had never seen, and he did great and almost won. He didn't almost win because we were going easy on him, not at all. And in fact, the only reason he didn't win is because we kind of ganged up on him enough with that, someone else was able to come back and happened to win because he kind of had some surprise plays to finish off, Yeah. Because that actually is a thing. I think the last article I put up, Paragon related, was kind of talking about the importance of your deck having a finisher, kind of like a finishing move, because the game can kind of get to a point where, if you're close enough to winning, everyone is like, they'll just make their desperate move they would never normally use, like, kind of use the cards inefficiently or whatever, just do whatever they can to stop you, right? And you have to be able to get close. Either have 4 rescues with Son of God and New Jerusalem, or or if you haven't played Son of God and New Jerusalem yet, just basically have 2 and be ready to get your 3rd natural rescue, and then do something that's surprising that people can't stop with a Christian martyr, some way like that, to just kind of have your finishing move that's harder to stop. So yeah, I think that's a free strategy tip for for everyone, and I put together a ton of Paragon decks, and like some of the first ones I built, I hadn't even necessarily picked up on all of the strategy things myself, So not all of the ones that I've built are the most competitive even within Paragon. But that is a free strategy tip for anybody who wants to do well at the side event at Nats or whatever, is make sure there's some way in your deck to kind of get that surprising last rescue that people can't stop. The easiest way is just to use the new version of Daniel, because protect from harm, choose the blocker, cannot be prevented.
Or you could do some Jeremiah shenanigans, right?
Oh yeah. No, there are lots of tricks and lots of ways, for sure. And there will be creative. I'm sure there will be creative things. But it's no secret that in the Paragon format specifically, the new version of Daniel is the strongest hero in the game, because choose the blocker is just that much stronger in multiplayer, because you actually choose which player is blocking you, sort of like in teams, where you end up choosing which opponent is blocking you, and then just the fact that protection cannot be prevented is so good, because unless someone can negate it after the fact, which you can pretty easily avoid if you have pick of any character on the table to block you, choosing the blocker. That's hard to negate after the fact, and then you don't have to worry about Christian martyrs and things like that. So it's so yeah, he's a strong one for sure. So another thing, if you want to compete, have answers in your deck for Daniel, like ways to attack him in territory, or make sure that if your character is chosen to block, that you've got ways to negate him after the fact or whatever. Yeah.
That is certainly an interesting concept, making sure you have some way to kind of maybe finesse your last soul in a certain situation, so that you can avoid the gang up or the negative part of, multiplayer, to where, this guy is ready. So now we use all of our resources on that guy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Kind of sneak through there at the end. Yeah.
I am very intrigued by kind of the long-term potential of Paragon. I like kind of the amount of work that has gone into it to this point. It looks well put together for, where it is in its stage of, you said November is when it first was shared or whatever. And you first looked at it, kind of the inception point was back at National. So, you're talking about 6 months of development or whatever to get to this point, a little over. So I'm really intrigued for what it is, and having kind of the support of Land of Redemption Deck Builder, to where you can click Paragon and you can go in there and you can see it specifically, the card pool and what's available. I really like Tim's series too about what is it, the Let's Build, and he's built 2 Paragon decks. I hope he does that kind of opening up and maybe with his type 1. I think it'd be really cool, even though I'm not a big fan of the 100 card decks. It'd be really cool to see him go from scratch and build a 100 card deck and all of the thoughts that go into why he's making certain decisions and things. Maybe somewhere in there, somebody will find the answer to how a 50 card deck can beat a 100 card deck more consistently. But, I really like that. And I think whether that's by your intent or just by kind of the excitement around Paragon, it's getting kind of promoted in all facets of media for Redemption. I know we don't have a robust offering, but you've got it covered from the blog side with Land of Redemption. You've got videos with Tim, and then hopefully Jaden eventually gets to the point to where he does something with that. I know he's mentioned it at least offline at some point.
I think it might have been like New Year's Day or something like that. He had like one quick video where he just like read through all the Paragons and kind of just gave like a quick like his first impression of each one.
Maybe that's where I saw where he said he hopes to eventually get gameplay or whatever on his channel. Maybe it wasn't offline, and now we've kind of got it from the podcast angle here. I'm really excited for it. So, and I want to thank you for your time coming on here and sharing, but right now, just as we get ready to close this conversation in this episode of the podcast, is there anything you want to say? Like I already got you to try to sell people to get past the deck building hurdle. We talked about its usefulness potentially as a way to teach the game, help with play group development and things like that. Is there anything that maybe we haven't touched on that you want people to know about Paragon? That's a loaded question, I know. Yeah. Especially after you've talked about it for an hour.
I think we've done a good job of covering like the best parts of Paragon, but one other hurdle that I realized I could have spoken to earlier is don't underestimate how fun it can be to build multi-brigade decks when you normally wouldn't. Because that's been one of the main skepticism I've heard from people, if they have any skepticism about the format that they've iterated to, they've mentioned to me, it's often why can't I just put whatever brigade cards I want in my deck? Why are you making me have multiple brigades? And
to expand your horizon, son.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's several reasons. I mean, it's for balancing the Paragons. It's for making certain abilities be, it's kind of balancing out the themes a little bit. It's kind of, flattening the curve or whatever you want to call it, or something. But also it's a very fresh experience, and it's fun because it's like you're rediscovering all of these cards again for the first time because the context is so different. And, even things as interesting as, in one of the Let's Build that Tim did, he was building a Titus deck, which meant that he was required to have a certain number of clay cards. But then he decided he wanted to have some Isaiah package in the deck. And then he just suddenly realized, I could toss Ethiopian Treasurer in there because he's clay and he can use Isaiah enhancements, And it's not like It's certainly not broken. It's not even particularly strong, but just the fact that he was kind of able to smooth the brigades to be a little more than like he wanted felt like a big plus. And suddenly this Roots card that nobody's playing, actually found a home, So, little things like that can feel good. It's in a lot of ways, it's a deck builder's dream because it's a new place where you can do some things that people have never done before with Redemption. And it just feels that much more satisfying knowing that you had all of these restrictions on you,
So that's another angle to take is it's kind of like a toolbox here, and you're going to use tools that maybe you haven't used for a project before. Yeah, you can just take a hammer and a nail to fasten this to that. You can also use a screwdriver, a drill. And maybe your drill is, a DeWalt, or maybe it's an Ethiopian treasurer, and you're going to take these two themes and you're going to screw them together with a fastener. And that's kind of a cool, I can see right now, I haven't watched that video. I'll be honest. So at some point, I did watch the first one he did, but not the second one. So I'm kind of telling on myself, but it'll be nice to go and see the light bulb moment where he puts that together and puts the Ethiopian treasure, because there's a lot of those fringe cards. It's kind of cool. There's a lot of cards, even even one big point we made on earlier part of the recording for this podcast is Jake's card. Now, we're going to call it Jake's card, but Ager the Wise that was just shared in the spoiler channel, that's a card that's not going to see a ton of, it's not going to see a ton of play, right?
No. It might in teams, but not in regular.
Right.
Not
and then maybe Paragon, there's a home for it in this format, and you can tinker with it. And I mean, it'd be kind of fun because you get the table talk of, you get to look at their hand and which card you want to take. And then probably everybody has an opinion on whether they should give that card or draw the 3 or give that card to draw the 3 or not. I mean, it's little fringe abilities that kind of don't make the cut for type 1 constructed play, type 2 constructed play. They might be useful in booster or sealed. And this is kind of a blend of that to where it's like, maybe there's an area to where it's not booster or sealed to where these are the cards you might be stuck with because this is what was available and passed to you and what you open in packs. And you wouldn't choose these cards in full-on constructed deck building, but building with Paragon, maybe you use some of those, and it's kind of like finding a cool combo in booster or sealed.
Yes.
And you're in that random deck building. You're like, okay, I've got all the blue cards I can have. Now I've got to find something to pair with it. And you find something. I can see now like the potential possibilities of being deep into that toolbox and finding some random, I'm going to try this and see if it works.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And in fact, that reminded me of a comment someone made at the beginning. It might have been Tim. I mean, it might have even been me. I forget. This is someone said early on that the decks, they felt sort of like Booster Draft in some ways because it's a lot of cards you often see in Booster Draft, like the decks had multiple brigades. But it's like the dream Booster Draft deck. It's like the magical Christmas land Booster Draft deck where you got the exact cards you wanted. Like, where it's like, some of the cards that you only ever see in Booster Draft, but don't really reach their potential because you're never going to get all the other cards together with them. It's like you can actually put those cards together in this deck here. So it's exactly right. It's like the deck will look like a Booster Draft deck until you look closely and you realize, oh no, this is cards getting their time in the spotlight that they don't ever get.
15 minutes of fame.
Yeah.
I tell you, you've got me excited. I might log off here when we get done recording and go build my first Paragon deck.
Yes. All right.
So yeah. I'm definitely excited. I did tell you I'm going to give it a fair shake. And I'm really excited for kind of the hype curve of it because I feel like you've laid a little bit of foundation now, and now because there's an event at National, something to look forward to, something big. You're hyping up, a couple of surprises that are coming in the next few weeks or whatever. And we're here on the podcast talking about it. It's in Redemption, or it's in the plans for Redemption with Jade, and Tim's got videos on it. It feels like the curve of hype is building up. Maybe we're on the track for, the hype train to Nationals with it. At some point, it's probably going to be a fever pitch to where, people are sharing, maybe with the public deck tool that Tim has, maybe we'll start seeing Paragon decks shared by not just Tim.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll see me drop one in the next couple of days. I don't know. But I'm really excited about that. So definitely want to thank you for your time coming on and sharing. And thank you for, the brunt of this. Like, someone has to take and see those problems that you saw and choose not to just see the problem, but see the solution. So, and the amount of work to go into this, we're talking about the hurdle of having to print these cards and, put paper in front of an actual card and whatnot. Well, someone had to design all of that. And I know, because I like designing, random fan-made cards and cool artwork cards and things. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
So for at least from my end, I want to show appreciation for your efforts in that, and thank you for it.
Well, I appreciate that. And I also want to thank you for having me on. This has been a lot of fun. First time on the podcast, and it's been a lot of fun.
First time, and it never has to be your last. We can always bring you back.
That'd be great.
Yeah, as long as you don't get offended by my poor editing skills at some point.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. So I guess we'll get ready to wrap up here, and thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Threshing Floor Podcast. Help us grow our community by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're at it, be sure to subscribe or follow so you don't miss the next episode. And we'll talk to you next time on the Threshing Floor Podcast.